Yes. Mr. Speaker, understanding order 104. My brother, Senator Ojenda, has started it very well. But the standing order says he has just disclosed partially his interest. But the standing order is specific that he should tell us the pecuniary and proprietary interest shall first declare. So you need to tell us how much are you being paid to represent. Mr. Speaker, and in that, Mr. Speaker, as per standing order number 104.
You are out of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
So, Senator Professor Ojenda is very much on the light side.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I had to declare my interest because Kwale Sugar International Company, Kisco, is my client. And Mr. Speaker, more specifically, I handled a case involving Ramisi Sugar Company. I also handled a case against Mkopuo Network, and the respondents lost the case. We won the case before the Kwale High Court. So, Mr. Speaker, what the Mkopuo Network has come to claim in court, in Senate, and part of what has been established in the petition, Mr. Speaker, sir, is subject to a lot of verification. Let me confirm, Mr. Speaker, that the question, Mr. Speaker, I wish you could have some silence. The question of compensation.
Senators, order, senators.
Mr. Speaker.
Order, Senator Chaligei. Senator Chaligei.
No, I'm not prosecuting my case.
Senior Counsel Agenda, the Senator for Kisumu will be in absolute silence.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the case of Mkopuo touches on two aspects, Mr. Speaker. Mkopuo Network lost a case against Kwale Sugar International Company for rights to a specific parcel of land. But Mr. Speaker, what they won was an earlier word that directed that former landowners or workers of Ramisi Sugar be given land, be allotted land. That is the role of the National Land Commission and has nothing to do with Kisco or Kwale Sugar. I think that is a point that the Committee on Lands will look at. And Mr. Speaker, when we do our cases, we win because we set out the facts, proper facts before the court. You know I'm a land expert, Mr. Speaker, sir. Thank you.
Senator Milaj.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kuweza kunipa fursa hii na mimi niweze kutoa changizo zangu. Kwanza nipende kukubaliana na walioleta maombi yao hapa yaweze kusikizwa. Lakini zaidi Bwana Spika, ningependa bunge hili ama taasisi husika ya National Lands Commission waweze kutuelezea sisi watu wa Pwani maana ya watu waliozulumika kihistoria. Kwa sababu tunapozungumza hivi sasa Bwana Spika, kule Mombasa tume ya National Lands Commission inazunguka na inahadaa wananchi wangu wa Mombasa. Kwa sababu Mheshimiwa Spika, haiwezekani kwamba mtu ambaye alikuwa alikuwa meya wakati huo, wenyewe wanamuita liwali, alipewa mamlaka ya kusimamia wananchi wa Pwani, akakabidhiwa ardhi awe msimamizi wa wanaoishi Mombasa. Leo hii amechukua ardhi ile akawarithisha vizazi vyake. Leo hii watu wa Mombasa, Mheshimiwa Spika, wameambiwa watakwenda kununua ardhi na mashamba ambayo ni yao ya abu na abu kutoka kwa watu ambao wanaishi ughaibuni. Nataka kujua Mheshimiwa Spika, ikiwa hili jumba la Seneti kweli ni mbwa ambaye hana meno ama ni jumba ambalo linatendea haki wananchi wa Kenya. Wakaazi wa Mombasa hawawezi kununua mashamba kwa watu ambao wamewanyang'anya. Hata ikiwa rais ametangaza kuwa hakuna mtu atavunjiwa nyumba, sioni kwa nini ushuru wa Wakenya uchukuliwe upawe wale watu ambao wamewazulumu wananchi wa Mombasa mashamba yao. Na nazungumza hapa kwa uchungu mkubwa kwa ile way forward ambayo NLC wamepeana kusema kwamba sisi watu wa Mombasa, Bwana Spika, ya kwamba sisi hatukudhulumiwa. Nataka leo tuambiwe ya kwamba ni nini historical injustice ili tuweze kujua. Hatutakubali.
Senator Kenywa. Senator Miraj. Okay. Order, senators, order. Order, senators. Honorable senators, pursuant to Standing Order 2381, the petition should be committed to the Committee on Legal Affairs and Human Rights for consideration. Honorable senators, from where I sit, I really request this committee on JLAC to expedite this process. And all chairs, other chairs with the petitions. Senator Mbete Motet. Any other committee that has petitions pending before the committees, kindly in the next 30 days, make sure that we close with these petitions. Most petitions are from the members of the public. And the Senate will not look so good when we don't clear the petitions when they are brought to this House. So maybe in the next 30 days also, let us kindly clear all the pending petitions before our committees. Next order.
Order number 5, papers.
Majority leader.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the Senate today, Wednesday, the 27th of March, 2024, which is 1, the report of the Auditor General for the county governments for the financial year 2022-2023, Volume 1, County Executives, report of the Auditor General for the county governments for financial year 2022-2023, Volume 2, for county assemblies, 3, report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the municipality of Kilifi for the year ended 30th June 2022. Reports of the Auditor General on the financial statements for the following for the year ended 30th June 2023, Lamu County Women Empowerment Fund, Isiolo Water and Sewerage Company Limited, Muranga County Assembly, Car Loan and Mortgage Scheme Fund, Nyandarua Water and Sanitation Company Limited, Nyamira County Assembly Car and Mortgage Loan Scheme Fund, the Municipality of Kitale, Turkana County Youth and Women Empowerment Fund, Migori County Assembly Car Loan and Mortgage Fund, report of the Auditor General of the financial statements of Kericho, County Assembly Staff Loan and Mortgage Fund, report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the County Revenue Fund, County Government of Kericho. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Senator Kavindu Wester. Honorable Senators, I have 2 communications to make. Senator Kavindu, you are only member of this House. You just freeze where you are. Don't need to learn. So, Honorable Senators, we have 2 delegations in both the Speaker's Gallery and the Public Gallery. I would like to acknowledge the presence in the Speaker's Gallery this afternoon 8 young men and women who have been in the Senate for the last 3 months undertaking an internship program. Honorable Senators, the objective of this program is to provide young people with first-hand experience in the legislative process and to expose them to the intricate world of public policy and public service. I request each intern to stand when called out so that they may be acknowledged in the usual Senate tradition. Number 1, Mr. David Mudhuri, who has been intern in the Directorate of Social and Economic Committee, DSCC. Mr. Jogu Gedenji, intern, DSCC Department. Mr. Oliver Nyango, the same department, DSEC. Ms. Eva Muturi, the same department, DSEC. Also, number 5, Ms. Valentine Muchiri, intern, DLC. Ms. Rendia Kawera, intern, Department of Finance. Mr. Alexi Mumo, intern, Ansand and Ondru. And Ms. Eunice Mugo, intern, Department of Sergeant at Arms. On behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, I wish them well during the program and in their future endeavors. I thank you. I can request Senator Mboni Karwale to acknowledge the interns. I saw you really applauded them when I called out their names. So appreciate the interns. Mboni Karwale.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in my capacity and on behalf of the rest of the membership of the House, I want to congratulate the young people and wish them well going into the future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. I have another communication from visiting students from Diwa constituency in Homa Bay County. Honorable Senators, in the public gallery, we have 15 students from Diwa constituency in Homa Bay County. They are here on a one-day education tour at the invitation of Senator Beatrice Ogora, MP. Honorable Senators, in our ancient tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. I thank you. Under 1.5 minutes, Senator Beatrice Ogora, welcome the visitors.
Honorable Speaker, I want to thank you from the onset for the opportunity given to the Kenyatta University Students Association from Diwa constituency, where I come from. And I want to start by passing our condolence as a Senate. On behalf of this Senate, I pass a condolence to the Kenyatta University fraternity for the accident that the number of their students got, and a number of the students, we lost a number of the students during that accident, Honorable Speaker. We feel with you as a Senate, and may the Lord keep their soul in peace. Honorable Speaker, they were students at Kenyatta University, are students that are very progressive. I want to encourage them, to welcome them to the Senate. The Senate is a protector of the interests of the counties, and the students know that there's nobody that does not come from any county. So this Senate takes care of all the interests of the counties. And to the students, here in the Senate, we equally have young people like you, Senator Matthew is here, Senator Zena, Senator Gloria, senators, a number of them, including Senator Oburu Oginga, who is the youth leader in other quarters. So in this Senate, you have people you can look up to. I want to encourage you to keep to the path of hard work. I want to tell you that success is not instant coffee, although it was never meant to be easy. But keep on working hard. One thing I want to leave you with, because of the few minutes I have, is that as you go back to your institution, always know where you're coming from, where you are, and where you want to go to. Your future is in your hands. And Honorable Speaker, thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Another 1 minute to the Senator Homa Bay County. Moses Kajwani.
Mheshimiwa Spika, nashukuru kwa kunipa fursa hii. Vile wajua mimi ndiye mwenye boma kama seneta wa Homa Bay. Na Senator Beatrice Ogola tunafanya kazi vizuri naye. Anafanya kazi vizuri chini yangu na mimi nafanya kazi vizuri juu yake. Kwa hivyo tuko timu moja na tunashirikiana vizuri sana tukiwakilisha wakazi wa Homa Bay katika hili jumba la Seneti. Ningependa niwakaribishe wanafunzi kutoka Ndiwa ambao ni wanafunzi wa chuo kikuu cha Kenyatta. Na ningependa niwahimize wasijione kama watu wa Ndiwa pekee, wasijione kama Wajaluo, lakini wajione kama Wakenya. Sababu wakija hapa Seneti, hata ingawa tunayo tofauti za kisiasa kule nje, wakati tuko hapa Seneti tunawakilisha jimbo zote 47 na sisi sote tunafanya kazi kuhakikisha kwamba ugatuzi unafaulu na ugatuzi unaleta manufaa na matunda kwa vijana wetu. Ningependa pia niwahimize wafanye kazi kwa bidii na wajue uongozi sio kwa siasa pekee. Wanaweza kuwa viongozi kanisani, wanaweza kuwa viongozi in professional settings. Hapo sasa ndio ikaishia.
Professional setting ni kwa taaluma mbalimbali. Next order, clerk.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Senator Jones Mwaluma.
Where the other 4 national teaching and referral hospitals are located, leading to high cost of travel, augmented disease, and in some cases, deaths along the way. Now, therefore, the Senate urges, 1, the Ministry of Health to establish national teaching and referral hospitals in the coast, eastern, northeastern, Nyanza, and western regions, and 2, fully equip the national teaching and referral hospitals with modern medical equipment, medical supplies, and personnel, and 2, the county governments to allocate more funds to their respective health dockets to adequately cater or facilitate their county level 5 and level 6 hospitals in order to enhance provision of critical health services to reduce the demand for such services from the national teaching and referral hospitals. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Next order.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
Order, Senators. Senator Chalege. Let's have the statements understanding on the 53-1. We start with the Senator for Wasinigishu County, Senator Mandago. Senator David Wakoli.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. On the statement of markets in Bungoma County, Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations regarding the condition of markets within Bungoma County. In the statement, the committee should, 1, report on the state of key markets in Bungoma County, including but on the 3 recent incidents that happened at the factory, where a plant operator died from being crushed by a window, another sustained spinal cord injuries, and a 3rd operator lost their fingers. And 4, explain the factory's process for compensating workers for work-related injuries, providing details on the compensation paid in respect of the 3 aforementioned accidents. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, Senator Wafula Wakoli, MP, Senator Bungoma County.
Thank you, Senator Kinyua. You have 2 statements as well.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Request for statement on insecurity in Rumuruti in Laikipia County. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations on state of insecurity in the Rumuruti area of Laikipia County. In the statement, the committee should, 1, provide an update on the status of investigation into the deaths of Mrs. Tabitha Wajirojogu and Mr. Jeremiah Maina.
Yes, Senator Chalge, what's the point of order?
No, Mr. Speaker, just for order, we are following keenly the statements of Senator Kinyua, and it's on the roads and the issue of title deeds. It's not in the order paper. Could it be guided properly? Yes.
Senator Kenywa, how many statements do you have? Didn't the ones on the Honda paper as we sort the other one?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order number 33-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources on the status of processing of ownership documents for residents of Majengo and Likie villages in Nanyuki ward within Laikipia County. In the statement, the committee should, 1, provide an update on the status processing of title deeds for residents of Laikipia County, especially in Majengo and Likie villages of Nanyuki ward, stating any challenges encountered in the process. 2, state when the State Department of Lands and Physical Planning, in conjunction with the National Lands Commission, NLC, will issue the affected residents with title deeds on their parcels of land while ensuring the accuracy of the land ownership documents. And 3, outline the measures the Ministry of Lands, Public Works, Housing and Urban Development in implementing to streamline and accelerate the issuance of land ownership documents to Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, I have another statement.
On rules.
Request for statement on repair and regular maintenance of Nanyuki Doldo Road in Laikipia County. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing on Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Roads, Transportation and Housing regarding the repair and regular maintenance of the Nanyuki Doldo Road in Laikipia County. In the statement, the committee should, 1, inform the Senate of the current state of Nanyuki Doldo Road in Laikipia County and state any ongoing efforts for the repair and regular maintenance of the said road to ensure it is of use to the public. Further, highlighting any challenges faced in repairing or maintaining the road. 2, state whether the government has engaged a contractor to carry out repair and maintenance works on the said road, and if not, state plans and timelines for when a contractor would be engaged to address the poor condition of the road. And 3, outline measures, if any, implemented by the government to ensure that contractors and services providers deliver works, goods and services as per the terms of tender award to curb delays in service delivery. I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have another 2 statements, which you have approved.
I'll first confirm with the table. So just have a seat for 2 minutes. Senator Gloria Roba. Senator Gloria.
Kindiki tukiwa hapa. Lazima hiyo statement yako iangaliwe vizuri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have 2 statements, and I will start with my request for statement on the alleged financial improprieties at the Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority, UFA. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget on the alleged financial improprieties at the Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority, UFA. In the statement, the committee should, 1, establish the total amount of funds that have been remitted to the Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority, UFA, over the last 5 years. 2, investigate the discrepancies regarding unclaimed funds amounting to 10 billion Kenya shillings that cannot be accounted for, given that only 1.5 billion Kenya shillings out of the 11.5 billion has been accounted for, and state any measures the board has taken against the management in the supervision of the audits. 3, establish why UFA, that is the Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority, incurred expenses of over 500 million Kenya shillings for substandard audit services undertaken, stating the procedure used to procure the services of the audit firms and the role played by the UFA management in supervising these audits. And finally, state the steps taken to determine the value of unclaimed financial assets in the form of shares that are not currently listed in the Nairobi Security Exchange, NSE, outlining any measures taken by the authority to safeguard the shares from decreasing in value and monies made through the sale of shares by way of fiduciary duty as envisioned under Section 143 of the Companies Act. That is my statement on UFA. On my second statement is, yes, the request for statement on reports of the layoffs at the Standard Group amidst the financial constraints. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53.1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Labor and Social Welfare on reports of delayed salaries of Standard Group employees. In the statement, the committee should, 1, state the number of employees on contract and on permanent and pensionable terms at the Standard Group. 2, confirm accuracy of claims that employees have not been paid for the last 10 months, providing a timeline for when these employees can expect to receive their overdue salaries, stating interim measures, if any, in place to support employees who may be facing financial difficulties due to the delay. 3, state the basis for this delay and establish whether there are any plans to restructure the company, stating the measures being taken to protect the interests of the employees in line with the labor laws. And finally, cause the company to provide regular ask the company to provide regular updates on the progress made towards resolving this issue and steps taken to rebuild trust and morale among the employees. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Professor Tomojenda.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have 2 statements. The first statement is on the status of the operationalization to town status conferred to towns in Kisumu County. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise according to Standing Order 51.3 to 53.1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations regarding the status of the operationalization to town status conferred to towns in Kisumu County. In the statement, the committee should, number 1, explain measures in place to prioritize formulation and implementation of policies for the operationalization of Maseno, Katito, Kombewa, Ahero, and Moroni as towns. 2, elucidate the status of compliance of the county government of Kisumu with the requirements of the Urban Areas and Cities Act 2011 in respect of the provision of essential services in the said towns. And 3, provide a detailed budget for the running of each of the towns, including the provision of services stipulated in the Urban Areas and Cities Act 2011. Mr. Speaker, sir, my second statement is on
the second statement.
The second statement, Mr. Speaker, sir, is on the state of construction and maintenance of existing county roads in Kisumu County. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53.1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Roads and Transportation concerning the state of construction and maintenance of existing county roads in various sub-counties in Kisumu County. In the statement, the committee should, 1, describe the current state of existing county roads in Kisumu County and outline the road network maintenance and improvement plans for the sub-counties in Kisumu County, particularly in Seme, Kisumu Central, Nyando, Kisumu East, Kisumu West, Moroni, and Nyakach sub-counties. 2, provide detailed information regarding the composition of the Kisumu County road maintenance team, their roles and budgetary allocation since establishment. 3, provide a detailed record of the funds set aside for the construction and maintenance of county roads in the said sub-counties, together with a list of status of roads that have been done through the machine-based program, outlining the budgetary allocation and expenditure since the commencement of works. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, sir, explain the status of county roads that have been constructed and maintained by the county government of Kisumu during the financial years 2019-2020 to 2022-2023, providing details of all payments made for these works during the said period. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Mohamed Chute, you have 2 or 3 statements.
I have 3, Honorable Speaker, thank you. I have 3 statements to read. This is a request for statement on measures to address water scarcity in Corwood in Marsabit County. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources regarding water scarcity in Corwood in Laisamis constituency of Marsabit County. In the statement, the committee should, 1, state the reason why the government has to date not made any lasting interventions to ensure adequate water supply to over 30,000 residents of Kor who have been deprived of access to basic water supply for many years. Number 2, ascertain whether a feasibility study has been undertaken to explore the viability of constructing sand dams across all seasonal rivers in Corwood to address the problem of water in place, if any, by the government to ensure residents of Corwood have access to clean water throughout the year. And finally, number 4, shed light on the long-term initiative
besides the hires. So who can welcome these students? Senator Medu, Nairobi County. On behalf of your friend, Senator Sifuna. Ayani Primary School.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
1 minute.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I wish to welcome the teachers and students from Ayani Estate Primary School, Nairobi. We apologize that the senator has been, who was here in the morning session, has not been able to join them this afternoon, but we welcome them so that they can be able to learn, understand what we do as Parliament, so that even as they work hard in school, they know that the future is very bright for them, and they can also join us here in the days to come if they put a lot of effort. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mutinda, less than 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as a delegate of Nairobi County, on behalf also of our Nairobi Senator, I want to take this opportunity to welcome you in this institution of the 13th Parliament. This is the upper house called Senate. It is a house with rules, the same way you have rules in your learning institution, the same way you have principals and vice chancellors, is the same way we also are guided by rules. We have a booklet, students, that is called a standing order that we adhere to because we are legislators. You can also be in this space. It's not limited for anyone. The future is open for each and every person. Mine is to wish you the most brightest future ever. God bless you.
Let's get the next statement from Senator Mandago. I'm told he has delegated to Senator Milaj.
Yes. Request for statement on diversity and inclusivity in staffing of at the Parliamentary Service Commission. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on National Cohesion, equal opportunity and regional integration on employment opportunities and representation of the country's diversity in the Parliamentary Service Commission. In the statement, the committee should, 1, present a report on the ethnic composition of staff serving on permanent and pensionable terms in the Parliamentary Service Commission, disaggregating this information by directorates, departments, and units. 2, supply information on the recruitment conducted by the Commission from 2012 to date, outlining the positions that have been filled and the criteria applied in the selection of candidates for each position. Number 3, furnish the Senate with information on demographic composition of the staff, detailing the agenda, age distribution, and state the percentage of employees with disabilities. And 4, outline the measures and policies in place to ensure ethnic balance, inclusivity, and equal opportunities for women, the youth, persons with disabilities, and individuals from marginalized communities within the Commission. For Senator Jackson Mandago, EGH MP, Senator Uasin Gishu County.
Senator Fatuma Dulo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order number 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries on the status of completion of Isiolo Export Abattoir. In the statement, the committee should, number 1, explain the reasons for the delay in completing the construction of the Isiolo Export Abattoir, which was commissioned way back in the year 2006, and provide a report on the status of the completion as well as financial analysis report and any other information outlining how much money has been spent so far, whether there have been any budgetary variation, total variation, and source of funds. Number 2, provide information as well as contracts, if any, on whether any other private companies and strategic partners have been engaged in the completion of the project, whether it is a joint venture or otherwise, how the strategic partner were identified, the scope of work, terms of engagement, and how much each company has been paid, and which company is currently working on the project. Number 3, provide a socio-economic cost-benefit analysis of the project to the resident of Isiolo County, neighboring counties, and the country as a whole, explaining whether public participation was conducted on the project as envisioned in the Constitution. Number 4, state whether there is an expert management committee on the project, explaining its mandate, membership, and criteria used in the selection of the members. Number 5, explain how the company that is allegedly equipping the abattoir was procured and how the process of handing over the expert investor company that is allegedly supposed to take over the management of the abattoir upon completion was arrived at, outlining the terms of engagement, scope of work, and copies of any agreement or contract in the process. Number 6, explain whether there have been any alteration to the original design of the abattoir, outlining any changes made and what necessitated these changes, and table the title deed and any other information to prove ownership of the land upon which the abattoir is constructed. Finally, Mr. Speaker, outline whether there is an existing framework of engagement between national government and the county government of Isiolo, noting that the project was commissioned before devolution was in place, and whether there are any plans to transfer the project to Isiolo County government. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Bugwa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Health concerning the expected impact of trained and experienced nurses seeking jobs abroad on nursing services in hospitals countrywide. In the statement, the committee should, 1, disclose the number of Kenyan migrant workers who have been cleared to work as nurses in the diaspora from the year 2021 to date, and 2, outline the steps the Kenya Medical Training College, KMTC, together with the Ministry of Health, is putting in place to increase the intake of students who would like to pursue nursing training, considering the high demand for Kenyan nurses in the country and abroad. And 3, state the ethical considerations being taken into account when promoting these opportunities, particularly with regard to potential of exacerbating the shortage of healthcare workers in the country, thereby endangering the lives of Kenyans seeking these services. And 4, explain any programs in place to facilitate knowledge and skills transfer from experienced nurses migrating abroad to those remaining in Kenya's healthcare system, or whether there are strategies in place to give incentives to nurses and other healthcare professionals to encourage them to stay and practice in the country, especially in the underserved areas. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Maruma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to seek for this statement on medical insurance coverage for teachers in Taita Taveta County. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Education regarding the provision of medical insurance coverage for teachers in Taita Taveta County. In the statement, the committee should, 1, provide a list of the contracted to offer medical cover for the teachers, including a list of all medical facilities in Taita Taveta County that provide health care to the teachers and a medical insurance cover in each sub-county. 2, provide contractual agreements between Teacher Service Commission and the service providers detailing the agreed upon mode of payment between the said parties. 3, state reasons for the delay in payments that has led to these facilities terminating their services to teachers, particularly the teachers in Taveta sub-county who are currently unable to access medical facilities due to the non-payment of services rendered. And 4, disclose the amount of debt owed for each medical facility, specifying any steps the Teacher Service Commission is taking to provide a workable payment plan to these facilities and ensure teachers continue to enjoy the benefit of healthcare provision. Mr. Speaker, I would like to seek your indulgence. I have another statement that is given from the table so that I go through it.
Kindly expedite the speed of reading. You increase your speed.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. I'll increase my speed. The second statement, Mr. Speaker, is on the non-payment of allowances to the members of Taita Taveta County Lands Control Board. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources regarding the non-payment of Taita Taveta County Lands Control Board committee members. In the statement, the committee should, 1, provide a list of all members of the board indicating when they were appointed. 2, disclose the duration for which they have not received their allowances, stating reasons for the non-payment. And 3, state the total amount owed to each individual member, providing a timeline for the settlement of the arrears. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. That's good. Senator Kenywa, can you clear now your 2 last statements? 2.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations on the state of insecurity in the Rumuruti area of Laikipia County. In the statement, the committee should, 1, provide an update on the status of investigation into the deaths of Ms. Tabitha Wanjiro Jogu and Mr. Jeremiah Maina, who were murdered on Friday, 22nd March 2024, while coming from an overnight prayer meeting. 2, provide the total number of individuals arrested in relation to the deaths, confirming if they have been formally charged in court, and disclose whether substance abuse testing was conducted to determine if the individual were under the influence during the commission of the crime. 3, state strategies and measures being implemented to combat drug and substance abuse and the consumption of illicit brews in the area. 4, state whether there are police patrols within Rumuruti and its environs, giving the number of National Police Service NPRs within the area, especially in African location, Gomongo, Kandutura, and Kanan areas, explaining whether the NPRs are local residents and state their names. 5, explain the actions being taken by the National Police Service on Kenyomba, a structure that is believed to be sheltering persons engaging in criminal activities. And 6, outline any measures the Ministry of Interior and National Administration is implementing to ensure that police officers who have overstayed an area do not collude with criminals and that they carry out their mandate effectively. I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I proceed with the second statement? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense, and Foreign Relations on the state of security in Laikipia County, especially Marmanet Ward. In the statement, the committee should, 1, provide a report on the state of security in several parts of Laikipia County, with particular emphasis on Marmanet Ward, considering the loss of lives and damage to property occasioned by delay in deployment of police officers, and state any challenges faced by the ministry. 2, state when the State Department of Internal Security and National Administration, in conjunction with the National Police Service, will deploy police officers to Rimunga Police Post, which was constructed by the community, yet remains unutilized due to lack of police officers. And 3, elucidate the measures the Ministry of Interior and Administration of National Government is implementing to ensure that the residents of Marmanet Ward and other parts of the county enjoy unlimited security to enable them carry out their daily socio-economic activities with minimum disruption. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Next order.
Order number 8, the Division of Revenue Bill, National.
Proceed.
Order number 8.
If you, sorry, Senators, if you go to Standing Order 53-3, the Speaker may allow. So today, I'm not allowing because of the time. Proceed, Clerk. Next order.
Order number 8, the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bills number 14 of 2024, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to provide for the equitable division of revenue raised nationally between the national and county governments in the 2024-25 financial year and for connected purposes.
Next order.
Order number 9, the County Boundaries Bill, Senate Bills number 6 of 2023, second reading, division.
Majority whip, what is it on this order number 9?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Indeed, we are alive to the fact that we're supposed to vote this afternoon. We've done the usual mobilization, but we don't appear to be attaining the target, including the mover of the motion is not in the House. I would request that we defer that particular business and move on to the next business, Mr. Speaker. I thank you.
Thank you. We defer that the business under order number 9. Let's go to next order, clerk. Order number 10.
Order number 10, the Sugar Bill, National Assembly Bills number 34 of 2022, second reading.
Honorable Senators, the debate on this bill was interrupted yesterday, 26th March, and Senator Sifuna and 5 minutes. So since I cannot see him around, any other member wishing to contribute now can key in to contribute. Senator Chalagay, Samson Kiprotich.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to rise up on this, the Sugar Bill 2022, National Assembly Bills number 34 of 2022. Mr. Speaker, I know it originated from the National Assembly. Mr. Speaker, I think it goes in line with what we call when in 2018-2019, a task force, Mr. Speaker, on sugar industry stakeholders task force report, Mr. Speaker. As in remarks, Mr. Speaker, and Mr. Speaker, just as a concern, have you noticed one of the TV sets in the chambers, both sides are going off and on? I think we need to check with the supplier or people who are concerned. And it is good that the Commissioner of Parliamentary is in the House. It's impeding your visitors on gallery not to watch what is happening. I hope, and it has not been happening today, but severally. So we need to invite the supplier. Mr. Speaker, in opening remarks, this sugar, for example, in Nandi, Mr. Speaker, we grow sugar predominantly in Chemase ward and the Tindred sub-county by and large. Mr. Speaker, nowadays, part of Masop sub-county, Masop constituency, we are also growing sugar, Mr. Speaker. And even part of where I come from, Osoria, Mr. Speaker, some of us have tried our hand in planting sugar cane across Nandi. So Nandi is a serious catchment. I know, Mr. Speaker, there is a misnomer and misrepresentation in this republic that sugar only is grown in Kisumu and western part of Kenya and maybe Kwale and other areas, Mr. Speaker. But Nandi and Kericho is, in fact, most factories like Chemeli, like Ibos, West Sugar, like Butali, Mr. Speaker, depend largely on the sugarcane supply from Nandi County, Mr. Speaker, and Kericho counties. So we have a big stake. Mr. Speaker, I was disappointed when the Agriculture Committee decided to do only public participation in Kisumu County, Mr. Speaker, entrenching the continued marginalization against my people, Mr. Speaker, against the great people of Nandi and Kericho counties, Mr. Speaker. I would have expected, and in fact, even out of courtesy, Mr. Speaker, from your office or with the clerks, I was never invited for that meeting, Mr. Speaker. So, but I want to assure the people of Nandi, all is not lost. We are still holding this faith in fighting for justice and fairness so that we can no longer be marginalized, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to request your office in future, whenever committees move around, they should not move around like exclusive clubs. They should do a proper invitation to the area senator, Mr. Speaker. I think that is something small. That's just basic courtesy. As the Vice Chair of County Public Accounts, I cannot visit Meru without informing you as the area senator. So, Mr. Speaker, my people are not happy in Nandi County because we are entrenching the perception that sugarcane is only grown in Kisumu and maybe Vihiga and maybe Kakamega, Mr. Speaker. I know, Mr. Speaker, and it is very unfortunate. Most of those mills, Mr. Speaker, are sustained by the cane supply that we give from Nandi County. And, Mr. Speaker, on the second point, as I know there are many challenges on the issue of sugarcane development, sugarcane processing, the issue of milling, sugarcane farmers. Mr. Speaker, most farmers, sugarcane farmers, even in Kakamega, in Western region, and other parts of the country, Mr. Speaker, we only continue to suffer, Mr. Speaker. we continue to get frustrated, Mr. Speaker, because at the end of the day, Mr. Speaker, you know, and I want to agree, Mr. Speaker, in as much as farmers continue to develop, Mr. Speaker, I'm disappointed because also the roads that are being used, especially within Nandi, especially in Tindred sub-county and Masab sub-county where sugarcane is grown, the cess, we have never seen the cess that comes from Butali Sugar Company or a number of sugar factories that supply sugar from Nandi. Because that cess, Mr. Speaker, is supposed to be used to maintain and ensure those roads are accessed, Mr. Speaker, so that when these sugarcane factories are carrying sugar from farmers, they should maintain those roads, Mr. Speaker. That's why we saw increased tractor accidents. And I remember Senator of Kisumu, in a question time, raised the issue of tractor accidents. Because we need to be careful in terms of low-volume roads to ensure we protect homes and make sure, Mr. Speaker, that it goes to the next, Mr. Speaker. Number 3, on sugar industry stakeholders search for report of 2019, I can see that a number of issues have been raised and has been captured, Mr. Speaker. I have had the opportunity of reading the committee report that was tabled yesterday, and I am impressed that a number of amendments have been proposed by the committee, led by Senator Murango, the Kirinyaga Senator, the chairperson of Agriculture. They have proposed a number of drafts of amendments, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, as you are aware, there was total in 2022, Mr. Speaker, the country produced 796,053 metric tons, Mr. Speaker, and in which short, and I think we can attribute this to subsidized fertilizer program that President William Ruto did initiate. Now, in 2021, it was 700,000.24 metric tons, but in 2022, it has increased. Even in January, December 2023, at that time, Mr. Speaker, there is a significant growth. In 2022, Mr. Speaker, sugar that was sold was 4.56 billion. That continues. We are talking about a sector that is affecting a number of counties. And in Kenya, Mr. Speaker, we have more than 17 sugar mills, both private and public. I don't know where the one where Senator Aaron Cheruyat comes from has been included, because we have 17 mills in this, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, total processing of capacity per day is 52,700 metric tons, which is 56%. So, Mr. Speaker, we are still doing badly because of factory maintenance and unstable cane supply. So we must invest in cane development and cane supply to ensure that we are able to Mr. Speaker, I'll make only 5 comments, then I allow my colleagues to contribute. Mr. Speaker, there is this board that has been formed. I think AFA, Agricultural Food Authority, we had lumped all the crops into one organization. I'm happy the way we did with the Tea Act, we were able to form Tea Board, and now we are forming Kenya Sugar Board. We'll ensure that they focus their energy only on the development of cane and research within. Mr. Speaker, and even the farm inputs, the seeds, the research, Mr. Speaker, the imports, so that we don't, Mr. Speaker, we don't import sugar at the expense of our farmers, Mr. Speaker. So on clause number 4, I think the functions of, and also advisory services to the government and the county governments, Mr. Speaker, and even we have the sugar pricing committee, so that farmers are given the better price as per their tonnage and the supply, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, even on the issue of factory maintenance, you remember sometimes in this country, Mr. Speaker, we are told there is shortage or scarcity of sugar because some factories are undergoing maintenance, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, even such issues of, Mr. Speaker, I would have expected also we ensure their best practices. We have had cases where people are the issue of way bridges, Mr. Speaker, where the way bridges are being timbered, such that farmers do not get value for their cane they deliver, Mr. Speaker. So I expected the Sugar Board, I know it has been captured, so that they check, Mr. Speaker, and ensure the weighing scales or the way bridges are not timbered to the disadvantage of farmers in the country. Mr. Speaker, I have seen, for example, in Celia, Butali Sugar Company has opened a way bridge. As you approach the Kaliech, or as you approach the Potopoto on your way to Kisumu, Mr. Speaker, there is a way bridge. I don't know, it belongs to Kibos. So, Mr. Speaker, and other way bridges that are used to weigh a number of them. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, on the issue of best practices. And I don't know, for example, in the one at the Celia Way Bridge, whether Kenya Bureau of Standards has approved and checked, because I've seen they have just opened a way bridge in Celia, but, Mr. Speaker, whether the caps, and this will be the work of Kenya Sugar Board, Mr. Speaker. Number 3, on clause number 6, Mr. Speaker, of course, I agree on the issue of efficient road network. I can tell you in Nandi, we have not seen cess for sugarcane. When you go to Chemelil, Chemase, and Tindred, the roads are pathetic, yet cess is being paid by Chemelil, by West Kenya, and by Kibo Sugar Factory, Mr. Speaker. We have never seen value. When you go to Masop, we supply cane to Butali Sugar Company in Kakamega, where my brother comes. But the roads are very pathetic, Mr. Speaker, and it is very unfortunate. I hope the board shall find a way of resolving this, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of course, Finance Act, Mr. Speaker, I know some senators, this on the issue of imposter levy or levies. These are issues that Finance Act and Finance Bill in preparation of budget and KRA, these are levies we pay. People pay tea levy, sugar levy. It is meant for cane development and growth of farmers within the sugar industry. So there are no new taxes that are being implemented, Mr. Speaker. You know Article 219 on the process of taxation that the Constitution has provided for. The third point, especially sugarcane farmers, this is not exclusive zoning. This is zoning that will be determined when and approved by the board, and ensure that ensure that there is proper discipline within that geographical zone. And farmers must also be on the lookout, Mr. Speaker, and I'm happy that in less than 1 million should you violate, so that we bring that ensuring, Mr. Speaker. So I wonder, I've seen many people saying there is exclusive zoning. Reading of this law, there is no exclusive zoning. And in fact, in miller-farmer agreement, if there is a breakdown, for example, with a factory like Chemelil, and you are supposed to take the sugar West Kenya is factoring, under sugar miller, the agreement, Mr. Speaker, the law has allowed you to do an agreement and deliver to West Kenya. What does that translate? So that the farmer does not lose the cane. Because if we do not do that, Mr. Speaker, the farmer can ensure they lose the cane. So by all and large, I want to assure farmers, Mr. Speaker, that this law is work in progress. For me, as one of the sugarcane farmers from Nandi, I see this as work in progress. And we can pass this law and amend that. We need this chagari and molasses only for livestock. We don't need for human being, Mr. Speaker, in the fight against illicit breed. And I know people, and you know, Mr. Speaker, they say too much sugar causes diabetes. So, Mr. Speaker, we need to avoid, so that we are not encouraging the consumption of assumption of illicit brew. Mr. Speaker, but I saw the other day, I'm told Mnazi, palm wine is illicit brew. I didn't know that. I thought illicit Mnazi or palm wine is a good wine. I don't know why would somebody classify palm wine as an illicit brew. So Speaker, and even when our children are undergoing initiation from where I come from, those things that we take, even in Meru and other areas where I practice that ceremonies, Mr. Speaker, of initiation, Mr. Speaker, it's legally, Mr. Speaker. Even your area where, Speaker, you come from, around December, ceremonial things, even where Senator Fika comes from, Senator Otosi, we must be respected. Senator Ojenda, you should note that with a lot of concern, and if we might come for legal representation. So, Speaker, the issue of traceability on industrial sugar, I agree. Let us be able so that we avoid what we saw many years on mercury and other sugar that was impounded, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wanted to conclude. I can see I only still have 5 minutes. Only 5 minutes only on the sugar. You know, sugar is to us is serious business. The day they will be discussing on the issue of sanitary pads, we will not interfere because it will be a concern at that point, Mr. Speaker. On the issue of court order, Mr. Speaker, we must, the issue of power search entry, I think the law should be followed, Mr. Speaker. By and large, in conclusion, Mr. Speaker, I agree, but I will be very keen when this report, I want to see if the committee will move the amendments, Mr. Speaker, on the issue of zoning, on the issue of intermiller agreement, Mr. Speaker, and on the issue of stakeholder and market diversification and confidence and market diversification. But by and large, Mr. Speaker, this law should protect the farmer more than sugar barons and other people who have taken advantage. The liberation must start now. When the president came to office, he talked about guarantee minimum returns. We can only achieve guarantee minimum returns, Mr. Speaker, because, Mr. Speaker, of passing such laws. And I'm happy, Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, I heard my chair of agriculture saying yesterday that Senate has originated cotton bill, coffee bill, sugar bill, rice bill, tea bill. So Senate is the biggest defender of agriculture issues in this republic. Mr. Speaker, with those many remarks, we will wait until amendments are coming there. After amendments, Mr. Speaker, I will decide whether to support or not. My position will be known only after I've seen the amendments at the Committee of the Whole. And I know Senator Ojenda, as he's smiling, I know he was mentioned before on many other issues to do with sugar, but I know he was not consuming a lot of sugar because he doesn't look like he's diabetic. Mr. Speaker, with those, he's not a sugar daddy, it's just issues of sugar were being mentioned. Mr. Speaker, with many remarks, I beg to defer my support until amendments are done. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Cherargei. Senator Sotsi Godfrey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to also make my contribution to this very important bill, the sugar bill. Mr. Speaker, from the onset, I want to declare that I support this bill, although I want to agree with Senator Cherargei that this is work in progress. Why I'm saying that, Mr. Speaker, is because when I read through the bill, I see there is an attempt to try and address some of the challenges we have in the sugar industry, but there are many other challenges which this bill has not touched. Mr. Speaker, this country, in the 12th Parliament, there was an aggressive attempt to address the problems in the sugar industry. When the task force, the sugar task force that was led by former governor of Kakamega, Honorable Paranya, and the then agriculture cabinet secretary, Mwangi Kiunjuri, who came up with a very good report. If you read through the report, Mr. Speaker, a lot of things they propose in that report, if implemented, would be able to address the many problems that we have in the sector. But that report, Mr. Speaker, to date, it has not been implemented. And it is very disheartening that we are now discussing a bill, a private member's bill, when we should actually be discussing a government bill that picks input from that report. And that is why I want to fully agree that this bill is work in progress, because a lot of other issues have not been addressed, which, if addressed, will be able to deal with the issues in the sugar industry conclusively. But the most fundamental issue about this bill is just bringing back the sugar board. You know, there was an attempt to merge all crops, regulation of all the crops in one bill, one legislation called the AFA. But AFA has not worked. And that is why we have this agitation to try and have legislation for each crop. We have in this House passed a law on tea, we have passed a law on coffee, we have passed a law on cotton, and now we are now discussing the sugar bill. That clearly means that arrangement of consolidating all the crops under one law has not worked. And sometimes you wonder what wisdom was there to try and put all the crops in under one umbrella. Because, as you know, Mr. Speaker, we have so many crops. So we will end up having so many directorates under AFA. So, Mr. Speaker, I have also looked at the bill, and I think there are areas where I have concerns. If you look at clause 29, Mr. Speaker, talking about the Sugar Research Institute, the composition of the board, they are talking of a number of institutions seconding people, but we need to have clarity on the one person nominated by the input supply system. The bill does not define what input supply system is. So there is an ambiguity there. What is it they are referring to? Because already the millers are represented, already the government is represented. So who is this input supply system? Is it the farmers? I think we need clarity there, because nowhere in that clause 29 are they making reference to the farmers. And I think it's important that the farmers be represented on every body within the sugar industry, because they are the key stakeholders in the industry. Mr. Speaker, there is also a proposal to have one representation from universities. I don't think it's necessary, because already we have representation from research organizations who are basically experts. So why are we again going to university looking for representation when farmers are not represented? So I think there we have some ambiguity there, which I think we will be able to raise it during the committee of the whole House. Mr. Speaker, the sugar development levy. In the past, there were concerns on how this money is utilized. There were concerns on lack of transparency. There were concerns on lack of equity, on management of this fund. But the bill goes further to propose how this money will be shared. Whereas I agree that a big portion of this money should go to cane development and productivity. Mr. Speaker, cane development is a key aspect in this sugar industry. And I think the sugar industry started going down in this country when we lost focus on matters to do with the cane husbandry and cane development, and started focusing on other things which were not going to generate raw materials for use by these factories. So the proposal to enhance this allocation to 40%, I fully agree with that proposal, because then there will be a lot of focus towards matters of supply, matters of production of raw materials, which is very crucial to the industry. Taking note that last year, the sugar industries in western part of the country closed because there were no raw materials. And that affected the economy of the region. So a lot of focus should be put around cane development and productivity. There is a proposal still on the development levy that 5% should go to farmers' organization and 15% to go to research and training. Mr. Speaker, I think a lot needs to be put on farmers' organization, because, you know, we have outgrower companies, which most of them have died. But I think outgrower companies was a good idea, so that to try and provide avenues to enhance cane development and productivity. So 5%, in my view, is too little. It should be enhanced to 10%, because 15% that is being taken to Kenya Sugar Research Foundation, which is a government institution, should largely be taken, a portion of it should be taken to the farmers' organization to enhance farmers' participation in cane development and other factors. Mr. Speaker, it is proposed that 15% should go towards infrastructure development through KERA. I am among the people who are saying no to KERA. I think this money, we must critically think where to take it. Because KERA in this country has become National Assembly Road Authority. That is the truth. And they give money to members of parliament to maintain roads. The same roads are being, counties are also saying they are maintaining the same roads. Mr. Speaker, I think this aspect of KERA must be looked at, and I'm proposing that instead of KERA, we take this money to the counties, which we can oversight as senators. Because we cannot have a scenario where money generated from our sugar cane growing areas is taken to the national institution, and then the national institution brings back the money through members of parliament. I think members of the National Assembly. I think that is one area that we must look at. And the members who contributed yesterday, Mr. Speaker, had an issue with this aspect of KERA. So I think when we go to the committee of the whole, we need to look at this matter very critically, whether it is worthy to give 15% of the sugar development levy to KERA when we have the counties in those areas which can maintain those roads, and we will be there to oversight that. Mr. Speaker, there is also a proposal on pricing formula committee. And in the pricing formula, they are talking about factors to be considered in determining the pricing formula. And they have talked about a number of factors, which I fully agree. One of it being the aspect of delayed harvesting. Delayed harvesting of cane is a cost to the farmers, because when cane is harvested, there is delayed harvesting of cane, it impacts on the farmer, and that is a cost. So I think that should be a factor in determining the pricing formula. But there is one factor which has been omitted, and this factor is international pricing factor. We must, when we are looking at the pricing, we must look at what are the factors, pricing factors in other jurisdictions. Why is it that the cost of producing sugar in Brazil is lower than Kenya, or in Swaziland here is lower than? That is an important factor for consideration in determining the pricing formula. And I would wish that that should be included in the bill. Mr. Speaker, clause 59 is very interesting, Mr. Speaker, because it talks about the incorporation of farmers' representation in the board of private sugar mills. Mr. Speaker, I don't know how this will work, because this contradicts the Company Act. Because I am an investor, I have come to set up a factory in Kenya, and you are telling me that in your factory, you must bring someone else as a director in that company. I mean, this can also have a negative effect in terms of investment, because investors will shy investing in the sugar industry because of this condition that a farmer whose only contribution is to deliver cane to the factory and is paid for it has to become a shareholder or has to become a director. I think we have a problem there, and is a contradiction to the Company Act, and it discourages investment. Mr. Speaker, the clause on clause 33, the sugar industry inspectors, whereas, Mr. Speaker, I fully agree that the role that these people have is very important. They will be basically providing oversight over the functions of millers or players in the industry. But it creates a contradiction in the sense that then what is the space of Kenya Sugar Board? And what is the space of the sugar industry inspectors? Yes, they are appointed by the Kenya Sugar Board. But who are these people? They are not employees. They're just people who are appointed. And these people can have been given excessive powers, which they can misuse and create more problems for the sector. So I think we need clarity as to who these people are. Are they direct employees of the Kenya Sugar Board, or there are other third parties who are accredited by the Sugar Board? Because if you read the clause 33 further, it says that even government agencies can be inspectors. Mr. Speaker, then why do we need Kenya Sugar Board? Why do we need Kenya Sugar Board? If we are creating another amorphous group of people called Kenya Sugar Industry Inspectors, and then we have a substantive body called Kenya Sugar Board, we are creating contradiction there, and I think that has to be harmonized before we pass this bill. Mr. Speaker, though this bill talks about matters of importation of sugar, issuance of license, valid license will be issued, but it leaves out a very crucial aspect, this aspect of repackaging of sugar, where sugar is imported into this country, repackaged in Mumia's sugar brands or Nzoia brands, and sold to the market. The bill is quiet on this, Mr. Speaker. Even the list of regulations to be created by the Cabinet Secretary, it is not listed as one of them. Mr. Speaker, this is a problem. And Senator Halwale knows the effect of this, because even at some point when Mumia's sugar was not crushing sugar, we had sugar branded in Mumia's on the shelves. Where was it coming from? Mr. Speaker, this is a serious problem that this bill has not addressed. The issue of clause 63 on staff issues, transition of staff. Mr. Speaker, the earlier bill which had been brought by former MP for Kandui, Wamunyinyi, had a transition clause that was not progressive, because it says the employees who are formerly with the Kenya Sugar Board will not be transitioned to the new Kenya Sugar Board. But this particular bill has ironed out that problem, that all the staffs who are formerly with the original Kenya Sugar Board and those who are with the AFA will all be transitioned to the new Kenya Sugar Board with all their benefits, with all their pension. I think that's progressive, and I fully support that. Mr. Speaker, as I said when I was starting my contribution, that this is work in progress. There are a lot of things that needs to be fixed here. There are a lot of gaps in the sugar industry that needs to be fixed, but this is a start. Let's give it a try, but I look forward for more amendments, even when this has been made law, an act of parliament. Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, I want to support this bill, and I want to request other members also to support. And those of us who have amendments, we will bring up amendments so that those ambiguities that I have made reference to are dealt with. Mr. Speaker, I've just remembered one thing on privatization. Privatization of our sugar company, I think, must be done very carefully. And there must be wide consultations. It should not be rushed in whatever name it is, even if it is coming as leasing or what, it should not be rushed. The communities and the stakeholders must be heard, and they must be heard properly, so that we don't end up selling our assets to people who are not interested in matters of sugar. They are interested in land, they are interested in property, and they are interested in quick wins, like what happened with Pan Paper, where a company that is worth 10 billion shillings was sold for only 900 million. And whoever bought the property was not only keen to buy the land. And the Luya community lost. And we are seeing the same being done for Mumia Sugar and Zoya Sugar. We will reject, and we will reject strongly. And the Honorable Halwale is our leader in that. He will lead us to reject this privatization, which is earmarked for sugar companies in Western region without involving the people and without looking at the benefits that our people will get. Mr. Speaker, I support.
Senator Mondigi Alex.
Bwana Spika, mimi naunga mkono mjadala wa wakulima wa miwa. Miwa huwa inatengeneza sukari. Mimi ni mwenyekiti mdogo wa Wizara ya Kilimo. Wakati tulikuwa nazungumza juu ya maneno hii, sisi hatukuwa tunachukua kama ni kitu ya haraka, kwa sababu siku hizi serikali ya Kenya Kwanza inaongea mambo ya pesa mkononi ama pesa mfukoni. Sisi tumeenda tukaita watu wakatupatia maoni zao, na mambo ya miwa county karibu 12 huwa sinalima miwa, na miwa hizo county 12 upande ya sukari huwa inakunywa kila kona zote ya Kenya na kona zingine za nchi ya dunia. Ni mambo mengi tuliangalia, kama ile Senator Soti amesema, mambo ya vijana. Kama ni hapo tulisema tuliona kama ni kijana wa watoto wa university, tukaona ni vizuri wale watoto ambaye wanajua mambo ya Wizara ya Kilimo wanaweza kuwa pale, wao wakienda kuvunza watu na kunzivunza vile mambo ya sukari itaendelea. Mambo ingine tuliangalia ni vile tuliona kama kuna mtu atakuwa anatoka nje akuje atengeneza kampuni yake Kenya, tukaonelea ni vizuri, kwa sababu watu wengine ni mataberi, wanaweza kuondoka na waondoke na pesa ya watu wa Kenya. Tukaangalia tukaona ni vizuri pia ule anakuja kuweka kazi yake hapa Kenya, kuna watu wanaweza kuwa kama directors, wanaweza kuwa kwa hiyo kampuni yake. Mambo ingine tuliangalia nile tuliona wapandaji wa miwa, miwa ni kitu muhimu sana, na wakati tulikuwa changa mambo ya miwa tulikuwa nasikia uvumi vile inasaidia serikali ya Kenya, lakini wakati huu tuliangalia vile watu wamenyanyaswa. Familia nyingi haiwezi kupeleka watoto wao shule, familia nyingi haiwezi kupeleka hata watu wakigonjeka hawezi kwenda kwa hospitali. Familia nyingi imewachwa maskini kwa sababu matemberi waliingilia mambo ya kilimo ya miwa. Mambo mengi tuliangalia. Wapandaji wa miwa huwa inakaa ndio iweze kukatwa, inakaa mwaka moja na miezi 8. Ni kitu ya aibu sana kwa hizo kaunti zote tukiangalia, kwa sababu kazi yao ni kulima miwa. Mambo ya kazi vile wanaweza kupandisha usuri yao haiwezi onekana vizuri. Mambo ya chakula, mambo ya maji imekuwa ni shinda. Imekuwa hata mambo mengi ilikuwa kwa wakati ule, kama ni shule, kama ni hospitali, zote zimesambaratika juu ya vile wameumia. Tukaonelea mambo mengi tuliangalia. Kwa hiyo si ati tu tulienda kuita watu tukae pamoja tupitishe. Hata nimesikia watu wengine wakisema hawakuwako kama Senator wa Nandi, lakini kusema ukweli sisi wakati tulienda kule kwa ile county karibu na ile ya wale watu wa Nandi walikuwa pale, lakini Senator wa Nandi hakupatikana. Mnajua mambo mara mingi huwa anakuwa na kazi nyingi huko nje, labda ni kazi ya kuwalipia watu manjina na kitu yote tunajua kama anja usiswa yote huwa anapinga. Kwa hiyo nataka kusema Senate inafaa iunge mkono mambo ya sukari. Ni mambo mengi tuliangalia, si ati tu tulienda tukaandika mambo ile tumeleta hapa sisi tukiwa kamati ya wenye sukari, ya kamati inaangalia mambo ya kilimo ya sukari. Tulikuwa na watu ni wasomi, hata wenye wale wako pale, wale wanalima na wale wengine na watu wa serikali. Kwa hivyo mimi nasema Seneti ikumbali na maoni yetu, ndio tuweze kuona vile tutasaidia mkulima wa miwa ambaye miwa inatengeneza sukari. Tukienda upande ule mwingine, mnajua kamati katika Senate mambo mengi tumepitisha. Kama agriculture tumepitisha mambo ya ndengo, tumeangalia vizuri mambo ya kuenda kule masinani, tumepitisha hata mambo ya vitu nyingi tumepitisha, na pia saa hii mjadala tuko naye ni ya sukari, na pia tumeongea hata mambo ya majani. Kwa hivyo hakuna tofauti ya mkulima wa majani na mkulima wa kahawa na vitu zile zingine. Kwa hivyo ninataka kuunga mkono, nikiomba Senate yote ikumbali maoni ya Senate ambaye ni ya Wizara ya Kilimo, ndio tuweze kulima. Lakini tukisikia Senate wengine wakuja kusema hawakuhusishwa, ni kitu ya aibu sana. Ni bora tu wasome ndio tuweze kuona vile itakuwa, kwa sababu iende ikawa mtu aliitwa lakini hiyo vitu ilikuwa kwa mitandao, na pia watu wengine walisema walipue ndege. Ilikuwa ni kitu ya aibu sana. Kwa sababu mimi nasema Senate iunge mkono, kama kuna mahali iko na shinda njia ya kilimo, tutaomba tukuje tukae chini tusemesane tuone pahali tutataua. Kwa hivyo mimi
Senator Mundigi. Before you take the mic, Senator Cherargei, Senator Mundigi, when the chair asked for your attention, listen. Nilikusikia ukisema wewe ni mwenyekiti mdogo wa Wizara wa Kilimo. Wizara wa Kilimo ama kamati ya kilimo?
Kamati ya kilimo. Speaker.
Senator Cherargei, I do not want to inquire as to what your point of order was, but the Honorable Senator Mundigi has concluded on his remarks. Unless I of course did. That's why I was reprimanding him on the fact that when he has been notified by the chair that there is a point of order, he should appreciate and take appropriate action by ceding the chair. But he did not do it. I therefore warn the Honorable Senator Mundigi. Senator, yes, Senator Cherargei.
You know, my character has been discussed here. Did you hear Senator Mundigi, which he needs to expunge and withdraw and apologize before the answer? He said in Kiswahili ati mimi naharibia watu majina. You know, this is not a public market or a public rally where Senator Mundigi just gets away with anything. If he says Senator Cherargei was invited to that public participation, the standing orders demand that you table an evidence to show that there was a letter that was received in my office to attend that event. You cannot just be making statements that you make in funerals and birthday parties by saying, anaharibia majina. So Speaker, as the Vice Chair of Agriculture, he should have been gracious enough by saying even that they did not have enough time or resources to invite some of us, instead of saying, anaharibia watu majina. You know, you should just say those ones in funerals, not on the floor of the House. Mr. Speaker, I demand that he apologizes and withdraws. Otherwise, he tables, as per the standing order, evidence, including air tickets, invitation of the letter that came from your office inviting Senator Cherargei to that meeting. Whether I was booking an hotel, he should table air tickets, booking reservations, and also the letter from the office or from the Agriculture Committee to show that Senator Cherargei was invited, but he declined. Instead of saying Cherargei anaharibia watu wengine majina, which evidence does he have? Can he table? Mr. Speaker, he must withdraw and apologize because it will, if it goes to the answered, it will be used by somebody else, Mr. Speaker, and you know the implications.
Senator Cherargei, Senator Mundigi, you have been in this house for the last 1.5 years. I believe that you should have learned the order on how things are done. Senator Cherargei has raised an aspect, and besides everything else, the reference to the term kuharibia watu majina is out of order, and I ask Senator Mundigi to withdraw and apologize on that particular aspect. I will not make comments beyond that on the other comments that Senator Cherargei has raised.
mambo ya miwa ilikuwa kila kwa mitandao kila pahali yote, na watu wa Nandi walihudhuria, na rafiki wangu ni vile akusikia vizuri, ambaye ni Senator Siregei, ni rafiki wangu, na ninasema watu yake walikuwa pale, na pahali ile county tulitembea ilikuwa ni kwa mpaka. Kwa hivyo kama akusikia vizuri, sikusema vile nimesema. Kama nimeongea vibaya, mimi nimesema, sikusema hivyo. Ile kitu ingine ilifanya tuwe atuendi ile county zingine, hatukuwa na pesa, hata tunajua hata yeye mwenyewe wakati
I ruled that you withdraw and apologize on that particular comment. I didn't give you an opportunity to explain beyond what you had said. Senator Mundigi, kindly, and I'm giving you the last warning, apologize and withdraw, or else I'll rule you out of order. Senator Mundigi, for the last time, apologize and withdraw.
Nimesema nimeomba msamaha na kuondoa.
Senator Halwale.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if there is one thing that this House should do, then just pass this bill. Even if there are 1 million amendments that are supposed to be there, this bill is an admission of how Parliament can fail. In 2013, Mr. Speaker, somebody came with an amendment bill, not an amendment bill, with a bill in this House in 2013, canvassing for the establishment of the Agricultural and Food Authority. And it passed. And it killed the sugar industry. Mr. Speaker, I want to agree with many members, especially the views of the Senator of Vihiga. He appears to appreciate the meaning of this bill, that there are gaps. But for starters, let us pass this bill. Why? Mr. Speaker, we are re-establishing the Kenya Sugar Board, period. Once you re-establish the Kenya Sugar Board, that is the beginning of recovery. Mr. Speaker, I know you were not there. You were busy in your law firm at that time, or probably at the University of Nairobi. What happened is that some tomcats, treasury mandarins, started salivating for the money that was in the account of Kenya Sugar Board. They looked at Kenya Sugar Board, billions of shillings. Bioethanol Board, negative. Sijui other board, negative. And they wanted to sweep the money, and they did, and they disappeared. In the process, they crippled the livelihood of 25% of Kenya's population that depends on this industry. Arithmetically, that converts at the current population of 55 million Kenyans to 14 million Kenyans were adversely affected. And together with that, 250,000 small-scale farmers were shortchanged. The amount of poverty this has visited in the sugar belt cannot be described. You go to Shivale market in Mumias, the once vibrant economy has closed down. You go to Kahunga in Mumias, it has closed down. You go to Nabaholo, the markets have closed down. Mumias town itself, the same, just because of the failure of this parliament. Parliament should never fail. Mr. Speaker, I therefore appeal to colleagues that you listen carefully to the contributions from senators from the Sugar Belt. And these are 12 counties, starting from Kwale across up to the border with Uganda. Mr. Speaker, as I thank the committee through its chair for coming to Kakamega, I want to urge the senator of Nandi, who is my neighbor, to use kind words to this committee. They did an excellent job. I saw them. I was in their meeting. They never lobbied me, but because sugarcane farming is very important, I was interested. They didn't even have enough money to go to 5-star hotels, 7-star hotels outside Kakamega, but they lived on. I'm proud of this committee. Mr. Speaker, this bill, in its first schedule, speaks to the sticking issue of zoning. Yes, zoning is a very pregnant issue, is a hot brick. If not managed properly, it can be abused. I therefore want to support them, that we go by the proposals of the task force. However, during the third stage, I would like to appeal to the chair, you adopt some of our proposals so that they become the proposals for amendment by the chair to give it the weight that it would deserve, for us to polish it even further. Because if you don't do it very well, zoning, which is supposed to kill poaching of cane, can also enslave the farmers in that zone, in the sense that you will be coerced through legislation to deliver your cane to a factory in your zone, whether it pays you well or not, whether it pays you timelessly or not, whether it harvests on time or not. And this is why I say we polish it. Mr. Speaker, the issue of zoning should also be polished further so that the issue of way bridges must be addressed. We must make it an offense punishable under this act for any miller to set up a way bridge in a zone that the miller does not belong to. You'll find, you go to Western, Mr. Speaker, we have wide load, long trucks that carry harvested cane from end to end. This law, we want to polish it, and Chairman, I appeal to you, so that should this miller choose to haul cane long distances, then they should incur a penalty as they cross from one county to another county. Mr. Speaker, the issue of poaching of cane from foreign zones is the reason why I would like to support this bill, where it says that no single miller should enjoy monopoly, whereby his investment is more than 30% of the total cane harvested in this country. Mr. Speaker, it is because of this greed of setting up very many factories that you find these people then end up poaching cane from end to end. Mr. Speaker, for purposes of enforcement, the police under this act must be authorized to arrest poachers of cane. And those of us who come from the heartland of cane production, i.e., the county of Kakamega, the county of Kisumu, and the county of Bungoma, we know what we are talking about. Yes, and county, Busia for a long time is part of Kakamega, so when I say it as a big brother. Mr. Speaker, this law has to speak to harvesting of cane. The reason why you had the Senator of Vihiga speak to the issue of the temporary closure of factories that was there last year is because these poachers, Mr. Speaker, were engaged in harvesting of premature cane. Under this act, we must make sure that harvesting of premature cane is, Mr. Speaker, criminalized. And Mr. Speaker, in this act, we are speaking to cane pricing. Cane pricing, the proposal in this act is that it should be done every 3 months. You cannot do that. Pricing must be reviewed every month because sugar fluctuates on the national, on the regional, on the continental, in COMESA, and in the international market. So reviews should be regular so that we don't lose out. Personally, I know what I'm talking about. I'm a farmer in Marinya. I grow cane in Kakamega. I supply to Butali Sugar Company. I supply to West Kenya. And it is usually very annoying, Mr. Speaker, when this week you supply, and because we have not had reviews, the following week you see now cane is attracting a better price. I therefore want to plead with the chairman of the committee, you consider reducing from 3 months to, Mr. Speaker, 1 month. Mr. Speaker, there is an animal in this country under the total and absolute control of the National Treasury called importation of sugar. Importation of sugar, whereas on the one hand is a necessity, but on the other hand is killing our farmers. Mr. Speaker, how? An imaginary, hypothetical sugar deficit is declared by the National Treasury. Then cheap imported sugar hits the market and it denies the local farmers an opportunity to enjoy a better price. To discourage, I want to encourage the committee again at third reading to discourage this reckless behavior. We must tie down the National Treasury in this manner, that any time a declaration of a deficit is made and the market for imported sugar is opened, the local farmers must also enjoy and benefit from that importation. How? If 100% of imported sugar can be allowed into the market and 50% is allowed for private players, and the remaining 50% is given to the outgrower institutions. Mumiashi Outgrowers Company, Moko, Butali Outgrowers Company, Buko, West Kenya Outgrower Company, Tuya Outgrower Company, Sony Sugar Outgrower Company. The bottom line is that the benefit of importation will be enjoyed by the private players and also the local producers, so that there is shared prosperity as envisioned in the letter and spirit of the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Mr. Speaker, in this bill, and I'll be specific later on, we are speaking to the issue of cess. A member spoke to this issue and took it very lightly. He thought money was being taken to Kera, where the member was saying it was being given to members of parliament. That is not true. In this act, the money that is being taken to care, it is for development of roads in the catchment area, which is exactly what CES is supposed to do. So the bill is well crafted to that extent. And Mr. Speaker, it is not by accident that the mover of this bill in the National Assembly is the Honorable Member of Parliament for Navajo in Kakamega. And in this House is the distinguished Senator for Bungoma. It is because we are the ones who are wearing that shoe, and we know where it pinches. Mr. Speaker, if we fix our sugar industry in Kakamega, our own source revenue will triple. Because, Mr. Speaker, Mumia Sugar Company has a potential of a turnover of 24 billion. Butali Sugar Company, turnover of 10 billion. And West Kenya Sugar Company, turnover of 14 billion. With this kind of turnover, automatically our own source revenue is going to shoot up. This was the original intention of devolution, that we open up economies of counties so that they can grow their own source revenue. I was in an investment conference in Kakamega, Mr. Speaker, last week. And I looked at it and I said, it is really going to be difficult with this quality of thinking to unlock economies. There was nothing inspiring about the sugar industry, and yet it is the backbone of Kakamega. Mr. Speaker, allow me to speak to the following clauses. I can see my time is flying away. Very quickly. I'll not speak to too many clauses. To clause 38. Mr. Speaker, clause 38 is on sugar development levy. This clause, Mr. Chairman of the committee, please, you cannot succeed in the sugar industry without the farmer and without the miller. So when you share out the money for sugar development levy in 6A, clause 6A, instead of giving 15% to the millers and 5% to the farmers, you must balance it, Mr. Chairman, so that the miller gets 10% and the farmer gets 10%. It is a symbiotic relationship. If the farmer gets discouraged, the miller cannot have any raw material. If the miller gets discouraged, the farmer will lack a market. Let us give it the seriousness that it deserves. And then the final clause that I want to speak to, Mr. Speaker, is clause number, not the final clause, the penultimate, is clause number 58 on pricing. It says the main objective shall be to number C, ensure adherence to the negotiated cane processing formula. This is the backbone of what I was talking about, shared prosperity. If you don't adhere to it and you allow the investors to have a big say because they have the money to influence meetings, then farmers end up being shortchanged. And finally, Mr. Speaker, Article 59, which is speaking to representation of a grower in the private milling company. Honorable Senator Osoti missed it by a kilometer. The private miller, the reason why members are allowed to sit as directors is because left on his own, he should change us. It is like taking your goat to the market in Lubao and asking the person who is going to slaughter that goat to decide the price of the goat without reference to the owner of the goat. So, Senator Osoti, why we need that the owner of the goat, the sugarcane farmer, should also speak in Lubao market is because if he keeps quiet, his goat worth 12,000 shillings can be sold for as little as 2,000 shillings. So this law, again, Chairman, I congratulate you. You've done a good job in Article 59. Mr. Speaker, finally but not least, I want to thank the new investor in Mumias Sugar Company. He has changed the ecosystem. Shame on criminals who are now starting to ban the nuclear can. We know you criminals, and we are going to come for you. Mumias Sugar Company will never close. I thank you, and I support.
The Honorable Senator Okoiti Andrew Mtata.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I thank you for the opportunity to address this August House on this very, very important bill. To begin with, I agree with the Honorable Senator Khalwale that this bill should and must be passed. Because one of the most important thing at this stage is to disengage sugar farming from AFA, so that we can focus on matters sugar without being disrupted by matters pyrethrum and other crops, equally important. By moving away from AFA, we shall be living up to the maxim that bite small and chew finely to avoid constipation. AFA was a messy contraption. It was too obese to do anything good for us. Two, I thank the committee who found it appropriate to conduct public participation in Busia, where we mobilized farmers from the county and other stakeholders across the region to come and participate and make contributions about the bill. However, much as we want to pass this bill, I have some reservations informed by the question of ownership of cane. Tenant farming is still continuing, whereby farmers become tenants on their own land, as millers own the sugar they have grown, they are growing on their own land. We need to interrogate that issue and see what proposals we can come up with to ensure that a farmer is not reduced to a tenant on his own land. And maybe that might require a deliberate move towards cooperatives, farmers' cooperatives in the sugar industry, so that inputs and whatever support the national and county governments wish to give reach the farmers through cooperatives and not through the sugar miller. The question of auto-grower companies for me is a no-go area. They demonstrated total incompetence, and there were avenues for corruption, oppression, and exploitation of the farmer. Most of them were used to steal money from the same farmers, and they mostly became agents of the millers. I would love a situation whereby the farmer grows the cane, they organize themselves into groups, they are financed, they grow the cane, they own the cane, and when the cane is mature, they negotiate with the miller to say, you have got this much cane, how much are you willing to pay us? Or we move to the next miller. The idea of government support to farmers being channeled through the millers tends to reduce the farmers to tenants on their own land. And that, for me, is unacceptable. Also, the bill is not very strong on the demand that factories modernize and begin producing more products than just sugar from the raw product called sugarcane. There's need for millers to invest in modern technologies. Of course, they are making profits right now because they are not paying the farmer for the entire value of the sugarcane. If they are compelled to pay the farmer the value of the sugarcane, most would close shop. So, I would also like to see amendments that will push towards modernization of the sugar industry in this country, also targeting the miller, so that the miller should pay the farmer for the array of products that are possible and have been achieved in other parts of the world, where we always compare ourselves to and wonder why they are so efficient and productive. Also, I fully agree with what Senator Khalwale said, that harvesting immature cane should be punished. But beyond that, what is mature cane? Is it cane that is 15 months old, 16 months old, or 20 months old? I've seen studies done by the millers in this country which demonstrate that the optimum age for harvesting sugarcane in this country is 20 months, because the last 4 months, the cane tends to grow almost half the size it was at the age of about 16 months. The sucrose content also rises, and it's a win-win situation for the miller and the farmer. So mature cane should be clearly defined in terms of sucrose content and weight and value of the cane, at what stage does the cane become mature. So it should not be abstract that immature cane is what you see, what the eye sees. Immature cane should be determined scientifically through measures, through weights, through measuring and whatever. The other thing that is, needs to be addressed, and this is a global issue in terms of agriculture in this country, it's global to other areas, the question of inputs. Cartels have infiltrated inputs. The other day I was having a discussion with my good friend, Arap Menjo. And Arap Menjo was walking me through, he's a guy of the agricultural, whatever it's called, farmers, Kenya Farmers, it was called what? Kenya Farmers Cooperative or something. Yeah, so Arap Menjo told me that in the colonial times, the colonial government had organized, or the colonizers had organized themselves in such a way that they controlled the production of seed through what is now the ADC farms and what have you. They control and they made sure that the seed was the correct quality. So whatever things that you are going to grow was the correct quality for what you are going to farm. Arap Menjo also informed me that then through I'm forgetting the name of this, Kenya Farmers Cooperative, it was called Kenya Farmers Cooperative, they could purchase inputs for their farmers, first of all in bulk, to ensure that the prices are lowered, and then they could also ensure the quality of the inputs So that the kind of things we're having with fertilizer here, where anybody can import fertilizer today, could not arise. The farmers controlled it. And then at the end of the day, they controlled the pricing of the products and whatever in conformation with the other players on the market. So that the farmers were never at the mercy of cartels. But when AFC was destroyed, no, when the Kenya Farmers Cooperative was destroyed, KFC was destroyed. Thank you for the information. The great senator from my neighboring county of Sabot, of West Pokot rather. So, such an arrangement needs to be made so that we can protect the farmers from the rogue players in the production of seed and in the production of other inputs. And maybe we should be thinking of these vast ADC lands and turning them into multiplication centers for quality seed. Because if you look at how seed in the sugar industry is utilized, they just go and pick sugar cane of a certain age, usually young cane, and they give the next farmer to grow and they propagate it that way. They need to be controlled on the seed so that we know to what number of cuttings or what number of ratoons can still be used as a seed cane. But I was feeling that the vast ADC lands, especially if you can recover them from those who have stolen them, can be put to good use as centers for working in partnership with the Kenya the Sugar Research Centers to provide us with quality seed. So, those interventions would really be of help. The other thing that has been overlooked is the environmental damage that sugarcane causes. Sugarcane farming is very, very heavy on the environment. It takes a lot of chemicals, it takes a lot of fertilizer, and all those things. And a lot of our water masses have been atrophied. Like Lake Victoria now, due to the farming methods of cane in Western Province, is virtually a dying lake. And the soils within the sugar belt, let nobody cheat you, most of the soils have become too acidic for viable farming. So there should also be something must be done, especially to control the growing of cane in lowlands. Our swamps have all been drained. We don't have swamps. In my own village, in my village, we used to have a beautiful swamp called Kakolite. Kakolite in Ataso means basically the home of fish. This is an area where fish used to breed a lot, and then the fish would go down to Lake Victoria during the heavy rains. These swamps have been drained. There are now sugarcane plantations. And no wonder there's no fish in Lake Victoria. One of the contributing factors. So we must also come up with the mechanisms to control and to mitigate the environmental damage that sugarcane farming is causing. Otherwise, we might be doing what is akin to cutting down Kakamega Forest, led by Senator Khalwale, creating temporary jobs by those who will be cutting down the wood and hewing it into timber to be able to deliver on that mandate. Otherwise, it will just be wishful thinking. It's a mandate that requires a lot of input. And so we must find a way of empowering our counties. The question of KERA being given money should not be there unless KERA is devolved. KERA is unconstitutional, the same as KURA is. So we cannot give them money. They need to be put under the Council of Governors, so that when they execute their role of doing rural roads and urban roads, they are doing it under the supervision of the governors. And we only leave Kenya to execute what you would call national highways. So with those few remarks, Honorable Mr. Speaker, sir, I unreservedly support this bill. I support the creation of clusters body that will serve the broad interests of the Republic of Kenya to become the dominant and preeminent producer of sugar on the continent of Africa and globally. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I support.
Senator Veronica Maina.
Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you for the opportunity to debate the bill that is before on the floor of this House, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, at the very onset, this is a bill that should have happened yesterday or many years ago. And it's one day too late. But thank God the bill is finally here. Because, Mr. Speaker, sir, if there is a sector that has seen confusion, cartels, a sector where farmers have been frustrated by brokers, Mr. Speaker, where the market has been manipulated, it's the sugar sector. Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, those who tend to suffer most, Mr. Speaker, are the peasant farmers and the many stakeholders who have held the sugar industry, in spite of the fact that the sugar industry in Kenya, or the sugar sector, has been in tears, Mr. Speaker, sir. If there is one sector that has been unpredictable, Mr. Speaker, sir, and subject to very, I don't even know what to call the kind of regulation and legislation that it has encountered, is the sugar sector, Mr. Speaker, sir, because it's a sector where you find either sugar from other regions, sugar from Comesa, has been opened doors for, Mr. Speaker, sir, sometimes even through backdoor, just manipulating the market to enable certain individuals to earn from the sugar. This is such sugar, this is the sector, Mr. Speaker, sir. That is why this sugar bill 2022 is a very good idea, and an idea that was waiting to happen, Mr. Speaker, sir. And I want to congratulate the promoter and the proposer of this bill, our senator, for having found it fit, Mr. Speaker, sir, to bring out a legislation that is very well thought out and very comprehensive, Mr. Speaker, sir. And Section 4 of this bill has finally introduced the concept of facilitating a board that is supposed to facilitate equitable access to benefits and resources of the industry, Mr. Speaker, sir. That means the bill appreciates the fact that there has been inequity in the sugar sector in Kenya, Mr. Speaker, sir. We have watched on TV where farmers in the western region have been left with cane, Mr. Speaker, sir, or have taken canes to factories or mills that have collapsed, Mr. Speaker, and those farmers have not been paid. I hope this bill, Mr. Speaker, sir, can introduce a clause to see how such farmers could be indemnified, Mr. Speaker, sir. Especially those farmers who are known to have invested so much, and because of distortion in the market, in the sugar market, Mr. Speaker, sir, they have suffered losses, and some might never even be able to recover from the loss and the collapse that they have seen, Mr. Speaker, sir. Some of the members of parliament and some of the senators actually could be in parliament courtesy of the politics of sugar, Mr. Speaker, sir, from the western region, Mr. Speaker, sir, because any time that sugar is mentioned in some regions in Kenya, Mr. Speaker, sir, it means either one is correct or incorrect depending on the kind of ideas they are giving about the sugar sector. And Mr. Speaker, sir, I've looked at the composition of the board in Section 6 of this bill. The composition is so balanced. It has taken the spread of stakeholders. It constitutes of an executive chairperson appointed by the president. It takes on board 5 representatives elected by farmers. It takes on board the public and private-owned sugar mills. It takes on board the Council of Governors, the PS Agriculture, an appointee of PS Treasury, and a CEO who is also an ex-official member of the board or the secretary to the board. This by itself has brought in the very key stakeholders. And by the very virtue of how this board has been constituted, it then means, Mr. Speaker, sir, that the heated politics and the heated undercurrents that we have experienced in the sugar sector in Kenya can finally be managed. All those pressures can now be taken up by the board because most of the stakeholders have been represented in the board. And so we will not have one sector or one stakeholder suddenly complaining that they do not understand what is being done by the board because they are not represented. What must bring a smile to the farmers, Mr. Speaker, sir, the sugar farmers now, is that they will be represented on board. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is also very good that the bill proposes that the CEO must be a graduate, a holder of some credentials, Mr. Speaker, sir, because looking at the kind of a board the CEO will be working with, Mr. Speaker, sir, it then means that they need to be qualified in a certain speciality within the sugar sector, Mr. Speaker, sir, and will bring some value to the table, value proposition to the table. Mr. Speaker, sir, when I look at the functions of this board, what the board is entrusted to do, they are comprehensive and very exhaustive. It does not only deal with issues that affect sugar locally, the bill is also dealing with issues that will affect sugar that is being imported from other regions like Comesa. Mr. Speaker, sir, we already are aware that in Kenya, we have seen issues of sugar being imported, substandard sugar being imported, and the sugar being given to the common mwananchi to consume a product that does not meet the standard. This bill then introduces the standardization, Mr. Speaker, sir, and offers the legislation that is required, the infrastructure, the legal infrastructure that is required, Mr. Speaker, sir, to ensure that any sugar that is intended for consumption has met the expected standards, Mr. Speaker, sir. That is why, Mr. Speaker, sir, I support this bill. However, I have noted Section 22, which gives the licensing of the mills, Mr. Speaker, sir, would be issued by the board and would expire on the 30th of June. I do not know why the drafter of this bill, Mr. Speaker, sir, thought of matching the license year to the financial year that is normally undertaken by the government, because Section 22 provides that a license issued under this act shall be subject to such conditions as the board may determine and as prescribed in regulation, and each license shall, unless otherwise revoked, expire on the 30th June next following the date of issue. I do not know why we would have the license expire on 30th June. There is no connection between the license and the financial year, Mr. Speaker, sir. So my proposal would be to Senator Osotsi, or the chair of this committee, Mr. Speaker, sir, to consider making the expiry of this license to be 31st of December on every consecutive year, Mr. Speaker, sir, because then it does not need to align with the financial year. And most of the licenses, you will notice, are issued on annual basis, and the year runs from 1st of January to 31st of December. But that is a correction that can be done, because putting it in the middle of the year is disruptive to the farmers, is disruptive to the factory itself. And supposing it is not granted and we're in the middle of a season, Mr. Speaker, sir, it would defeat purpose, Mr. Speaker, sir. The bill is comprehensive. It constitutes provisions for a tribunal. It constitutes segmentation of different sugar catchment areas, Mr. Speaker, sir, in the first schedule of this bill. So I find as though this is a very organized legal bill, Mr. Speaker, sir, that is going to push the sector into some form of organization, especially considering the kind of chaos that this sector has seen in the last few years in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, sir, I therefore stand to support the making of this bill or the passing of this bill into law and congratulate the proposer of this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Omatinga Wahome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Let me start by saying also that I sit in the Agricultural Committee, and I'll start by commending the committee for the effort that they've put into this particular bill. Having gone a couple of times over the weekend throughout working Sundays to Mondays, Mr. Speaker, sir, this is indeed a clear indication that the committee is dedicated to seeing that and ensuring that legal frameworks are put in place that will ensure that the farmers of this country will no longer suffer from the predicament that they've been suffering from. Mr. Speaker, sir, it has been said, and rightfully so, by many senators who contributed to this debate. Farmers in Kenya, be it sugarcane, be it coffee, be it tea, be it macadamia, be it avocado, have always been taken advantage of by middlemen because of lack of sound legal framework that would protect them. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is indeed unfortunate that most of our farmers who have worked so hard to put a straight meal on the table have ended up being exploited. This bill, Mr. Speaker, sir, is a perfect indication that indeed with good legal framework, farmers can be protected, farmers can be assisted, and most important to Mr. Speaker, the bill ensures that the money, the levies and the revenue and the sales that's collected, it does not only go into repairing of roads, but also research is given its rightful place in the industry. Mr. Speaker, sir, we know that after the colonial era, there were sound research institutions in Kenya that saw many sectors perform very well. But as we progressed and corruption became a part of our society, people were taken advantage of. Farming was reduced. The brokers living in big cities took advantage of the poor farmers. Most of them, their yield, their work, their inputs, they ended up paying for loans that they never took. They ended up paying for inputs and fertilizers and other pesticides and the like that they never used. Why, Mr. Speaker, sir? Because there was a lack of a framework that would govern how that is administered. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, sir, moving forward, and now that we are enjoying the most political goodwill from none other than the President of this country, to ensure that the farmers are given their rightful dividends, to ensure that we put in place sound mechanisms anchored in law that can be enforced to make sure that farmers get their rightful dues. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is indeed very impressive when you listen to the President address each and every gathering, telling them that, yes, we can feed this nation. Mr. Speaker, sir, this has for the last 60 years dodged us. But now, with the right political leadership, under his leadership, the leadership of His Excellency, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, we know that we can indeed deliver our farmers from the bondage of the blockers. We know that we can ensure that they get the rightful income from their hard work. We know that farming and agro-business is going to be even more attractive to even the young Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, sir, that is why I would want to commend the Committee in Agriculture, led by my able chair, Senator for Murang'a, Senator Murango, who has ably steered the committee into formulating into public participation of various bills. Cotton, Mr. Speaker, sir, coffee, Mr. Speaker, sir, tea, we have seen macadamia, avocado is on the way, and most importantly, to put in place sound legal framework that will ensure that farmers do not only get their rightful dues, but they are also encouraged and that the government puts the right infrastructure and mechanisms in place to ensure that farmers are no longer conned of their hard work. Mr. Speaker, sir, this house, being a house of promoters and protectors of devolution,
The committee has seen into it, Mr. Speaker, that the role of the county government has not been marginalized, but it is left at the center because we know that agriculture is a devolved function, and with the spirit that has the president gave on his inauguration speech, ensuring that functions are unbundled and they are followed by the budget, we want to see, and this bill ensures that the functions and of management of sugar, like many other crops that have come before the Agriculture Committee, is a central, that the county government becomes a central player. Why is this important, Mr. Speaker, sir? We know that Kenya has been facing the problem of rural-urban migration. The only way to ensure that the rural population, especially the younger generation, can be and can get into meaningful generation of income is to make farming attractive. And how can we make that attractive, Mr. Speaker, sir? One, we must have the legal framework in place. Two, we must have the right policies in place. But most importantly, Mr. Speaker, sir, the political goodwill to ensure and to attract, to create incentives to the younger generation so that they can pick up farming is very, very important. It is therefore imperative, Mr. Speaker, sir, that we put legal mechanisms in place that will ensure every farmer who plants a seed will also harvest and reap the benefits of that seed. Mr. Speaker, sir, that has remained dodgy in many sectors, and I'm therefore very, very happy that this bill seeks to address the issues that have been very dodgy. We know sugar industry, for all the long reasons, Mr. Speaker, sir, be it poisoned sugar that is unfit for human consumption, be it sugarcane that does not meet the quality, be it sugarcane that has been delivered and never been paid for. Mr. Speaker, sir, with the introduction of this new bill and the amendments that have been introduced before this committee, by this committee, these issues are going to be addressed. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm very delighted, I'm a very delighted Kenyan to see that today, what has not been possible for the last 60 years, within 1.5 years of us sitting in this committee, within the first 1.5 years of this Kenya Kwanza government, the plan that we promised the farmers in this country is being realized. We see, Mr. Speaker, sir, that the government has been able to subsidize fertilizer. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, these are some of the benefits that must trickle down to all the farmers. But that have not been possible because of the governance and accountability issues, because of lack of well-defined legal framework. Mr. Speaker, sir, with this bill, with passage of this bill, we will ensure that what the government subsidizes indeed gets to the farmer. And Mr. Speaker, sir, it would be unfair not to say that the government committed itself to all the debts that were owed to the sugarcane, and it is in the process of doing the same for the coffee farmers. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, moving forward, we must ensure that the legal framework that is in place will ensure that the farmers are not siphoned of their money, because it cannot be the business of government for some people to enrich themselves only for the government to come and bail the farmers out. Having a clear slate, a clear starting slate, Mr. Speaker, sir, will ensure that the farmers of this country, they do not only enjoy their sweat, but they are also protected by the government. And that, Mr. Speaker, sir, can only be done when that is anchored in a living document like the envisaged in this bill. There is, however, some few things, Mr. Speaker, sir, that needs to be adjusted as we move by, that needs to be amended. But having said that, Mr. Speaker, it is also important to say that law in itself is not static. It is a flexible document that will be, as time changes, some of the clauses will need to be modified so that as we build capacity more and more at the grassroots level, we will ensure that we also put in place regulations. We'll also operationalize the law in terms of making sure that some of the clauses that are not quite practical can be amended. Mr. Speaker, sir, the introduction of sectors and zones in the sugar growing sector, it is a welcome move, because it is not only going to be good for elections, but also for the millers to also be able to create incentives so that they can get outgrowers, they can get farmers who will be prepared to sell sugarcane to them. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, sir, I would also want to point out that in all other farming sectors, Mr. Speaker, sir, I know, because I sit in this committee, that we are preparing ourselves so that by the time we are done with our term in this Senate, the history of this country, the history of agriculture, and what the problems that have confronted agriculture in this country will never be the same again. We want, Mr. Speaker, sir, and that is a commitment from our chairman, Senator Murango, that nobody again will in this country stand up and use agricultural sector as a campaign tool, because we are going to do what it takes to ensure that what has been promised for the last 60 years is implemented. The reason why is that is possible, Mr. Speaker, sir, it's because we have a government that is coming with a lot of political goodwill to ensure that we deliver the farmers of this country from the yoke and the bondage that they've been suffering from people who have been acting as the brokers and as the go-between, people who've been acting as the marketers. And I want to say that with the commitment of this committee and the political goodwill from the national government and the fulfillment of the plan, yes, we will deliver the Kenyan farmers from the bondage of brokerage and from the bondage of the oppressors, because we want to change this country once and for all. Mr. Speaker, sir, I support.
Senator Mutinda Tabitha.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do rise to really applaud this committee, and also the member from National Assembly and our member, Senator Wakoli, who has also picked it up, and the positive energy that we've seen from all the members led by none other than the chair, Senator Murango, on the effort that they've put on this bill. We say God's timing is the best. The bill is here now, so we execute it. And my first input, Mr. Speaker, is on the definition of the sugar catchment area. Mr. Speaker, in it, you realize that it's an area where farmers are clustered within a suitable sugar catchment area for purposes of election, Mr. Speaker, to the board. Now, Mr. Speaker, you realize that if it's only for the purposes of the election, the catchment area, then it leaves a very key important point that the committee should be able to note, and that is the point of cane management. It is very important that even as far as the consideration of the catchment area is concerned, it's not only for the purposes of election, but also for ensuring that cane management is put as a key priority, so that farmers can be able to ensure they benefit from the levies that will be put in place, Mr. Speaker. I've seen in regards the board shall focus on activities that will be able to add value, also on the issue of the export and local or domestic market locally, which is very important. Mr. Speaker, I have noted on point 5B, and I'm very happy for it because it talks about the extension services. I have my bill, which is already at the National Assembly, and I'm very happy to see that even services of extension, services like extension services for the farmers, then the board adheres to these services, because it is through these services and through these officers that should be put within the county, different offices of the county, will ensure the research that is going to be done as per the bill stipulates. The research, Sugar Research and Training Institute, it's very key, Mr. Speaker. Proper research, proper investments on good research institutes are going to ensure that the yields will be maximum. The quality will be, of course, very high. And this is a benefit both to the farmers and both to the market level itself. So research is very key, and I'm happy to see the extension services in it. Mr. Speaker, I've noticed clause 6, the board shall comprise of. I look at the total number in place, the number is 9. It talks about 5 representatives elected by the growers, 2 representatives elected by the private, principal secretary from the ministry, and all that, Mr. Speaker. I've looked at other bills, and when it comes to the composition of board members, the gender issue is very important. PWD is also very important. It is in my proposal that the committee should think in terms of this clause to be able to, apart from the 9 members, to add like 2 other members, for example, so that after elections, because at the election point, you cannot probably be able to determine either it's going to be this gender or this particular gender, but now any additional will be able to give an opportunity for the members who are less in terms of gender to be able to add an increase. And this takes care of both genders. If women are more, then men can get an opportunity to have an additional person to the board. If men are more, women will be able to have an opportunity to add one more person. And in that regard, also the opportunity for people with disability who need also to be part of this representation of the board will have an opportunity as far as that additional number is concerned. And it will be wise and positive that the committee ensures during the amendment they can be able to consider that fact so that everyone is well represented in it. Mr. Speaker, on part 6.3, I note that the board of directors, unless a person holds at least a degree or is equivalent in any discipline from any institution. Mr. Speaker, I've always disagreed with this fact very much. You find that people are seconded to different institutions, to different levels of their work mandate. But then I always ask the question, if we've had qualified students from our great learning institutions who have taken their time and identified their line of discipline of education that they are going to study, case example, agricultural field, then why is it, this being an agricultural area, that we should open up and say a degree or its equivalent in any discipline? So does it mean even someone who has done psychology is qualified? I'm not demeaning, but of course it's a very, completely very different field from the agricultural field. What about the students, the personnel who have taken their time and narrowed their education career to matters agriculture? And so it would be wise through the chair and the committee to give consideration, priority to degrees and degrees as far as the agricultural field is concerned. Of course, from a Kenyan recognized institution, there is no problem with that, but it should be much more specific so that our students who are out there, they have taken their time and narrowed into the agricultural field, they'll be able to have an opportunity and fit in this particular board membership. They will definitely, out of their knowledge, out of their experience, their skills, they'll be able to, of course, add much more input, putting in mind where we are coming from or where we are as far as the sugar issue is concerned, Mr. Speaker. I've noted number 9A, Mr. Speaker, impose a levy or levies upon growers and millers for the purposes of giving effect to the provisions of this act. Mr. Speaker, this issue of levies, of course, quite sensitive, but as far as I've looked at this bill, the levies will be able to take care of different issues as far as the development of infrastructure is concerned. The research institute funds, administration funds are also needed, but it would be my advice to the committee through the chair to consider a single-digit levy, as we've done with the housing levy, when it comes to the housing fund, mortgage fund. It's a single digit. So it will be wise, Mr. Chair, Senator Murango, if you would consider a single digit as far as the levies are concerned, so that it doesn't also so much press on the farmers as this board is put in place. The other issue, Mr. Speaker, is on clause 20, licensing and registration. A person shall not operate unless the board, upon recommendation by relevant county government for that purpose. It should be much more specific to the CEC agriculture at the county level. And further to that, for this license to be issued, the bill should be able also to guide in terms of the timelines that are needed to be able to issue this particular license, and it should be issued by the CEC agriculture within a stipulated time. There's no timeline in this. And you know, these are some of the cases whereby farmers sometimes, or billers will complain because you've done your application and the timeline is not specified. And if people have some hidden agendas, they may just delay approving or issuing license to you because there's no timeline. And then that affects a lot of things, Mr. Speaker. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, of course, on the 28, talks about the breed and promote sugar cane varieties. It's very key, so that these institutes can be able to offer the highest quality of seedlings as far as the sugar cane the cane is concerned. Sorry. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, it's on the issue of the sugar development levy, and more specific D, which talks about 15% shall be applied for infrastructural development and maintenance and shall be managed by KERA. We know very well, Mr. Speaker, that KENHA takes care of the highway roads. KURA takes care of the urban roads, and KERA takes care of the rural roads. But Mr. Speaker, it shall be managed by KERA of the catchment area. Mr. Speaker, I do tend to disagree that these monies should be given to KERA, or this infrastructure should be developed by KERA. KERA is a national level body. And it is at this point that you realize these levies are collected at the county level. So why is it that we want to collect monies at the county level and remit those monies to the national level? We will not then be supporting devolution. The amendment that the committee should look at is to mention that these monies that have been collected for development of the catchment areas, and remember, these are catchment areas that go where the farmers are. And so it would be prudent to say, through, of course, the Committee of Finance, this should come as a conditional grant. These monies be added to the counties. Conditional grant. This money should be added through the county so that the counties themselves are able to develop these particular infrastructures for the benefit of these farmers with these different counties. But Mr. Speaker, if you start giving this money back to KERA, then we will not be adhering to what the Constitution allows us to adhere to. So with those few and many, I do support and congratulate the Committee of Finance for really taking it with the weight that it deserves. Thank you.
Honorable members, there being no other senator who wishes to contribute to this bill, Senator Murango, the chair indeed confirmed that you contributed yesterday to this bill when you were tabling your report, and therefore you are not eligible to still speak to it. And so you resume your seat. I'll call upon the mover to reply to this bill. Proceed, Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd wish to thank all our colleagues for taking time to speak to this very important bill. When I made my contribution yesterday, I did indeed note that this is the neglected sector, a sector of the economy which, if we took time to plan and organize well, as envisioned in the manifesto of the Kenya Kwanza administration, Mr. Speaker, has a potential of saving our country billions of shillings that we use in importing sugar into the country to meet our annual deficit, which is slightly over 1 million tons, or slightly below that, Mr. Speaker. Secondly, it will create employment, Mr. Speaker, by the fact that there are millions of farmers who will benefit and therefore, from an organized sugar sector. Mr. Speaker, it cannot be the case that Brazil, for example, feeds or supplies a quarter of the world's sugar demand. Just one country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it cannot even be, the case cannot be made further worse than the fact that the leading producer of sugar in Africa is Egypt, a country that relies on water that traverses right through the sugar belt regions of our country, from River Nzoia, River Sondu, and all these rivers that wash down the stream towards the River Nile, Mr. Speaker. And they are able to put it to prudent use and grow good cane, Mr. Speaker, which they sell to the rest of Africa. It's embarrassing, Mr. Speaker, and I'm glad that finally we are getting it right in organizing this sector to ensure that we have a sector that works for our farmers, Mr. Speaker, and works for the country as well. Mr. Speaker, it is possible, and I know for a fact because I understand the sugar industry very well, Mr. Speaker, that upon the passage of this bill and with good follow-up, Mr. Speaker, of all the proposals that are in this bill, in about 1 to 2 years' time, Mr. Speaker, 3 at most, Kenya can actually be an exporter of sugar
to the rest of the COMESA region and even global supply chains, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank our colleagues who have taken time to contribute and raise very important points on this particular issue and their proposals of how they want the sector to be better organized, Mr. Speaker. I have taken keen interest with colleagues who, in the breakdown of the sugar levy, Mr. Speaker, are concerned that if you send this money back to Kera, what is the assurance, Mr. Speaker, that the same shall be used to maintain some of our roads? There are good arguments on over and above. For example, if I take the county of Kericho and the sugar factories that are close by, which is West Valley Sugar and Moroni Sugar, Mr. Speaker, that they are supplied mainly by a road network that comprises of both county and national government, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, there needs to be a balance. We need to strike, and I have engaged Senator Murango, the chair of the committee, that when we get to the third reading, perhaps we can break this down further, Mr. Speaker, so that there is a share of that allocation which Kera, and those funds must be ring-fenced, Mr. Speaker, to maintain actually the roads that lead to these sugar factories, Mr. Speaker. If this fund was already operational in that nature, the Kipsitet-Moroni junction between Kericho and Kisumu counties, Mr. Speaker, will not be in the kind of state that it is in today, Mr. Speaker. That is a very important link road that supports the sugar subsector in those two counties, Mr. Speaker, but it is in an extremely deplorable state. Yet, Mr. Speaker, the county governments must equally maintain the feeder roads within the counties. Therefore, that is a conversation that we may want to have. In fact, Senator Murango, I want to give you a better idea. I had told you that many of these sugarcane farm organizations, 5% is such a huge figure to give them from this sugar development levy. Perhaps part of that fund, because it will be put to better use if farmers can access the factories more faster. You can slash it and maintain it at either 1% or even put it as 30 figure of 100 million shillings, because there is nothing more than advocacy that these farm organizations do. The rest of the important duties, Mr. Speaker, have been set out from research and maintaining roads and price stabilization, running sugar directorate, sugar board, Mr. Speaker, is already broken down. Therefore, when we get to the committee of the whole, we'll be relying on the wisdom of the Agriculture Committee. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, with those very many remarks, I beg to reply. And further to that, Mr. Speaker, in accordance to Standing Order number 66.3, I want to request that you defer the putting of the question to a later date in which the Speaker you shall nominate. I thank you.
Subsequent to the request by the Leader of Majority, the mover of this bill, the division and voting on this is deferred to the next sitting of the House, pursuant to Standing Order 66.3. Clerk, let's move to the next order.
Order number 11, the Conflict of Interest Bill, National Assembly Bills number 12 of 2023, second reading.
Senate Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the Conflict of Interest Bill, National Assembly Bill number 12 of 2023, be now read a second time. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Conflict of Interest Bill, National Assembly Bill number 12 of 2023, was published by the Kenya Gazette number 41 of 2023. This bill was considered by our colleagues in the National Assembly, and sometimes in the month of November last year, they passed and they referred it to Senate for consideration. At the time of referring this bill, we had just broken on recess. Mr. Speaker, and having come back, I feel that it is time that we consider. This is an extremely important bill, Mr. Speaker. There is no hiding that corruption is a national shame, Mr. Speaker, and that one of the avenues that have been identified as the enablers of corruption in this country is this animal called the conflict of interest, Mr. Speaker, where public officials and state officers take advantage of their position, Mr. Speaker, to enhance their own personal interest as opposed to public interest, Mr. Speaker. And if we don't curb this vice, Mr. Speaker, I'm afraid we may not have a country to write about in the next few years to come. And therefore, I want to urge colleagues that we take time, listen and debate this particular bill with all the energy and vigor that they can summon, Mr. Speaker, because if you live in a country, Mr. Speaker, where industry pays less than its politics, then you know that there is a problem, Mr. Speaker. Where industrialists, Mr. Speaker, are poorer than members of the political class, because, say, for example, those in the political class and those within the realms of government, Mr. Speaker, are able to flex their policy-making decision and powers, Mr. Speaker, to the advantage of their own interests, Mr. Speaker, against the public good, then you find yourself in a very difficult situation. And this has been one of the greatest inhibitors of growth in our country, and why our country for so long, a country that is blessed with so much potential, Mr. Speaker, cannot take off and join the middle-income economies, Mr. Speaker, and be a country, Mr. Speaker, that many people can look up to. Yet everybody appreciates that we have a well-educated workforce, Mr. Speaker, that our human capital is the envy of the world, that Kenyans, when granted an opportunity, Mr. Speaker, they thrive and they excel. But because of issues such as what we are confronting in this particular bill, Mr. Speaker, we are unable, Mr. Speaker, to get to the next level. And therefore, until we all summon our collective strength and conscience, Mr. Speaker, to believe that there is a greater sense of moral good, Mr. Speaker, when the country thrives even better than you as an individual, Mr. Speaker, that when you're granted the opportunity to serve in a public office, be it as an elected official or a public servant, Mr. Speaker, that you must remember that it is that poor young man in the village, that poor old lady that walks perhaps barefoot, that has granted you the opportunity to use that office to make their life better, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I am particularly impressed that this bill provides that opportunity for us to be able to move in that particular direction. I'll quickly move to the various sections of the bill. Mr. Speaker, you know Article 73(2) of our Constitution provides the guiding principles of leadership and integrity, Mr. Speaker. And further, Article 75 requires a state officer to behave, whether in public and official life, or sometimes even in private, Mr. Speaker, and in association with other persons, in a manner that avoids conflict of interest between that personal interest and their official duties, which may end up compromising your official interest in favor of personal interest, Mr. Speaker, which is a point that I have just taken time to explain, that many countries, Mr. Speaker, that have been firm and fluid, Mr. Speaker, and fluent on matters corruption and slaying the dragons of conflict of interest, Mr. Speaker, have succeeded and have excelled. When people know that public office is only accessed with the sense and the desire to serve the public, Mr. Speaker, those countries have moved ahead and thrived, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, that has not been our story, and we must be the generation, and we must be the parliament, Mr. Speaker, that eventually turns this around, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, Clause 1 to Clause 4 of the bill provides for preliminary matters. I'll not take a lot of time looking into it. Part 3 of the bill, Mr. Speaker, which consists of Clause 8 to 29, they define the various situations that amount to conflict of interest and imposes obligations to public officers to either avoid, Mr. Speaker, situations that will result in conflict of interest, or prohibits even them from engaging in activities that will make you or put you in a situation where private interest, Mr. Speaker, is on a collision course with public interest, Mr. Speaker. All those are defined in these clauses 8 to 29, so that a public official will not come back and say, oh, I didn't know that this was wrong, including us, by the way, as members of parliament. As you debate a particular bill, a particular motion, Mr. Speaker, you are duty-bound on account of this law, Mr. Speaker, to make declaration of interest. Even the same is provided in our standing orders. But now this will be provided in statute, Mr. Speaker, to say that on this particular matter, I am afraid, Mr. Speaker, I may not provide the best of judgment because I know this particular client or this particular company, I do business with them, and so on and so forth, Mr. Speaker, so that the Speaker can determine that already, as a human being, you're biased, Mr. Speaker. It is impossible to divide yourself into two. So long as you're into either business or private or whatever sort of relationship with an entity or an individual that is before this House, Mr. Speaker, the same actually applies. And therefore, all those offenses are listed. Part 4 of the bill, Mr. Speaker, which is clause 30 to 38, provides for compliance measures. It tells you this is what you need to do, Mr. Speaker, because you're duty bound. That situations will arise, Mr. Speaker, where when you're serving in a public office, Mr. Speaker, something comes across, an advocate of the High Court like you, Mr. Speaker, that it is possible that at one time you have represented a particular entity which becomes subject to investigations in the Senate, Mr. Speaker. It is provided in clause 30 to 38 on what are the compliance measures that you're supposed to take, Mr. Speaker, as a public officer where private interest has been in conflict, and what you're supposed to do, which include either you recuse yourself, you declare the income and assets and liabilities by public officers and your diversions thereon. Part 4 of the bill, Mr. Speaker, part 5 rather, sorry, which provides, which comprises of clause 39 to 42, provides for the lodging of complaints against the conduct and investigation. It sets out the procedure for reporting any violation of this act to the Commission and to the reporting entities. It provides temporary vacation of office by public officers who are under investigation and stipulates the recommendation that may be made by the Commission to a reporting entity upon the conclusion. This is where the rubber meets the road. Once it has been declared, Mr. Speaker, that there is possible conflict of interest, that you didn't act in a manner that is in the best interest of the public, Mr. Speaker, on what is supposed to happen, and therefore EACC or whatever investigative entities, Mr. Speaker, are to do with you. Part 6 of the bill, which is for clause 43 to 48, are just miscellaneous provisions, which provides for the penalty, issues like filing of returns, and the power of AG to make regulations and repeal the Public Officers Ethics Act. Finally, Mr. Speaker, on part 7 of the bill, which is 49 to 51, it's the saving and transitional clauses, which provides for the Public Officers Ethics Act, Mr. Speaker, and the Leadership and Integrity Act, many of the clauses which are being succeeded by this particular act, Mr. Speaker. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, I want to urge senators to take time, read this particular bill, debate it, provide insight into it, how to make it better. Of course, given that you have personal interest in this particular matter, Mr. Speaker, because it affects us, Mr. Speaker, it is important that you also speak about it and share ways in which the bill can be made better. I'm sure when finally, Mr. Speaker, tomorrow, the report by Justice and Legal Affairs Committee is tabled, Mr. Speaker, on this particular bill and what clauses you want us to make better, it will even be for the good of the country. With those many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to move and request the Senator for Kakamega, our majority whip, Senator Dr. Boni Halwale, to second. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Boni Halwale.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to second this motion, and I'll be very brief. I rise to second this bill. The bill on the conflict of interest, National Assembly Bill number 12 of 2023. Mr. Speaker, I'll be very brief. I second the bill as moved. But I want to take this House down memory lane. This is not the first time that the matter of conflict of interest is becoming before this Parliament. In 1971, after the death of Tom Mboya, Professor Peter Anyang' Nyong'o writes in his book that he went to Singapore and asked the leadership why Kenya was lagging behind Kenya and Uganda when actually we had started off on the same footing like Singapore. And the president told them very quickly that we chose the path of prosperity while you chose to kill Mboya. Mr. Speaker, Mboya was very clear in his mind that it is an open secret that proximity to government, and especially high office in Parliament, is a way to create great wealth. And Mr. Speaker, with this realization, Mboya went and President Kenyatta formed the Ndegwa Commission. Mr. Speaker, Ndegwa was then the chairman of the Central Bank of Kenya, a highly respected banker. And Ndegwa, upon interviewing many parastatals, including NSSF, NHIF, name it, Ndegwa then allowed public servants to own property and participate in business with public entities. And that, Mr. Speaker, is where the rain started beating us. The Ndegwa Commission recommendations allowed civil servants to then participate in doing businesses with public entities. That was the beginning of the real conflict of interest. And the rest, Mr. Speaker, is history. It is not, therefore, a surprise to those who bother to fight for this country that some of the richest families in this country, Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, are the same families that have enjoyed the opportunity to lead the country at the highest level. I therefore want to support this bill because it now wants to categorically legislate, Mr. Speaker, on the sensitive issue of public of interest. The object being to provide for management and regulation of conflict of interest in the discharge of official duties. Mr. Speaker, as the mover of the motion has told us, this aims to prevent officials from using positions of power for personal gain. It's very difficult. This is the real meaning of Chapter 6 on integrity and leadership. People in high office dole out special favors to interest groups, to members of their families, to people they share membership to, clubs, to people who are fellow alumni, and in the process, the weak lose out. It played out in this House, Mr. Speaker, 2 weeks ago. When a little boy had to sell his business, 800,000 shillings, in order to access opportunity. This is what this bill is all about, conflict of interest. I therefore join the leader of the majority in urging colleagues, members, that we pass this law so that we move yet again a step closer to realizing the meaning of Chapter 6 of our Constitution on leadership and integrity. I second.
Honorable Senators, I now propose the question that the Conflict of Interest Bill, National Assembly Bills number 12 of 2023 be now read a second time. I will call upon the Honorable Senators who wishes to contribute to this bill, and I'll start with Senator James Murango.
Asante sana mstahiki Spika. Mimi nimesimama siku ya leo kujiunga na kiongozi wa wengi na pia kiranja wa Seneti kuunga mkono mswada ulioko mbele yetu. Na kwa muda mrefu ni kwamba wananchi wengi wamekuwa wakikosa huduma katika ofisi nyingi kwa sababu ya ukosefu wa maadili na pia ufisadi katika ofisi nyingi. Na kwa hivyo sheria kama hii ni muhimu sana kuhakikisha kwamba wanaotafuta huduma katika zile ofisi wanapata huduma bora pasipo ubaguzi, kwa sababu hawajulikani ama hawachukuliwi kama wahusika wakuu katika zile maofisi. Mstahiki Spika, ofisi nyingi ukienda siku ya leo utapata ya kwamba wenye wanatafuta ajira, wenye wanatafuta kazi lazima wawe na uhusiano fulani na mwenye katika ile ofisi. Kwa hivyo mswada huu na sheria itakaotokea kutoka kwa mswada itakuwa muhimu sana kuhakikisha kwamba maadili inahifadhiwa na watu wanapewa heshima na Wakenya wanapata huduma kwa njia inayofaa. Asante sana Mstahiki Spika.
Senator Wamatinga Wahome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. I also like to support this bill. Mr. Speaker, sir, abuse of office, corruption, favoritism, nepotism has been some of the key breakers of this economy and this country. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, sir, this bill seeks to cure such leakages that have brought our country to where we are today. Mr. Speaker, sir, with this bill, we will ensure that every Kenyan, as has been envisaged, has and stands equal opportunities to get the position to access opportunities that are open for every Kenyan. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to support. Thank you.
Senator James Murang'a.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to bring to attention that we don't have a sufficient quorum in this house to continue the business.
Sergeant at Arms, could you please ring the quorum bell for 5 minutes?
The quorum bell is currently on at the Senate. A quorum bell given 5 minutes to allow senators to get back into the chamber this afternoon. Before the commencement of that directive by the Speaker, who is Wakili Hilary Sigei, a member of the Speaker's panel, the House was debating the conflict of interest bill. This is a bill set to streamline matters to do with Chapter 6 of the Constitution on matters leadership and integrity. It is a bill that has also been considered by the Senate Justice and Legal Affairs Committee. This particular legislation aims at having an overhaul of Kenya's approach to matters potential conflict of interest within the public service, replacing matters to do with Public Officers Ethics Act of 2003, and provide a robust guideline for managing situations where private interests intersect with the public duty. In a nutshell, this is a bill that seeks to streamline matters to do with leadership and integrity, especially bearing in mind public officers who are holding public offices and get entrenched in cases of public interest. The key provisions include a clear definition of the conflict of interest, identifying where private interests could influence or hinder the impartial exercise of public duty. This bill on matters public interest seeks to introduce strong restrictions prohibiting public officers from giving preferential treatment, exploiting insider knowledge for personal gains, influencing decisions for their benefit, as well as taking certain forms outside employment and accepting gifts that could create conflicts. This is a bill that has received massive support from senators who, in their contributions, say some public officials have been using dubious methods to gain selfishly in matters to do with various businesses across the country, and especially the 47 county governments. The bill mandates for recusal and matters disclosure, requiring public offices to remove themselves from decisions where their interests could create a conflict and to regularly disclose their income. The public officers are also required to disclose their assets and liabilities. And additionally, the bill will be empowering the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, EACC, if approved, to thoroughly investigate alleged violations, including the potential for the suspension of implicated individuals in the investigation. According to the proposals in the bill, stiff penalties, including fines and imprisonment, are to be included for those who breach the act. This bill that seeks to regulate matters to do with public interest, matters to do with conflict of interest when it comes to persons serving in public offices or in civil service rather. This bill will strive to promote ethical decision-making, provide for greater accountability and stronger public confidence in government institutions.
It's 2:30 p.m.